Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 304 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the next couple hours of intense gaming discussion. Alongside me to do that is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
No, not much. It's only been like 2 days.
I know. Not much could have happened in the last day and a half. Yeah, we were just here on Sunday for the big Xbox and Bethesda showcase. Had a good time doing that. Got the archive up the next day. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed that if you weren't able to make it for the live stream. We had a really good time, and I would also add one of our best streaming audiences ever. As far as uniques, average number of viewers for the stream, everything. Like, our metrics for Sunday were amazing. So thanks to all you guys. Also, I should add that so many people helped us with Twitch Prime during that stream as well. It was a great stream for us. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. And the archive is up at sifted.net and at our Patreon at patreon.com/sifted right now if you weren't able to make it and you want to check it out. But here we are with GameFace, and the good news, Matt, is that we have plenty of content for GameFace 2 days later, because we didn't really tackle anything else around E3/Summer Game Fest on that stream. We just talked about Xbox and Bethesda, which was a lot, I would add. But yeah, we have pretty much the whole rest of the show to talk about, and we're going to do that on today's show. How do you feel about Xbox and Bethesda now that we're kind of a little removed from it? Do you feel the same way as you did?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, your impressions haven't changed on anything at all?
Nope. I mean, that's kind of what I thought we were going to get.
Yeah. I'm still kind of surprised that a lot of the audience thought it was worse than we did. Because I thought, even in hindsight now, I'm like, actually, that maybe a B- was a little tough. But everyone else disagreed with us.
Yeah, there's a lot of consternation about it on Twitter and such.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know what anybody.
I didn't
expected.
check any of that stuff out, so
I don't know what anybody expected. And a lot of it just devolved into this stupid, Starfield is No Man's Sky shit.
Oh, so other people are making that comparison.
It's been a subject about it. I think it's the dumbest comparison imaginable beyond, it's a very shallow surface level thing. It's like, yeah, they're two games about space exploration.
Yeah.
They don't look the same. They have very different art styles and very different, I don't see the aliens running around that look like the No Man's Sky characters in Starfield. I can't imagine there's going to be guys with floating polygons for heads and shit.
Wait, what was that creature that you stumbled upon again?
Oh, the Swagosaurus.
Internet famous
there
for
will
the
probably be no
Swagosaurus.
Swagosaurus Rex either. He's gone from...
Right, they removed him.
Yeah. But they rebooted that universe a few times. But, basically what I'm saying is, it's a space exploration game where you land on planets and walk around and do shit. Yeah, of course they're going to look somewhat similar because they're the same genre, but they don't look... Everyone's like, oh, resource gathering and crap. Yeah, you mean the thing that you've been doing in Bethesda games since 2012? I had to suffer through resource gathering and crafting in Skyrim and Fallout 4 and all. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And I really don't think it's going to be more focused on that than those games were. Hopefully the interface will be better, because I thought the building in both of those games was terrible, and I only did it when the quests required me to. I don't want to talk about how many minutes of my life have been spent watching that fucking mining animation in Skyrim. But it's all those things that people keep saying, oh, it's just like No Man's Sky. We're already in Bethesda games before the No Man's Sky even existed. This is just Skyrim with a spaceship. And I'm fine with that.
I think that's what people wanted, honestly.
The only thing that I've seen that felt like a valid criticism with some meat to it was the idea that if there's 1,000 planets, a whole lot of those planets are going to be pretty boring, because you can't put meaningful content on 1,000 planets. And you're not wrong about that.
I have a question about that, actually, because that was
some of those are just going to be ice balls. Where he's I know I can get methane there or something.
There's no way that they could build all those planets.
Well, they don't build the world of Skyrim. It's procedurally generated, and then you tweak everything.
Is that what they do?
That's how open world stuff works generally. Yeah, you kind of say, I want this here and this here and this here, and you sort of generate it, and then you go in the areas that you want to be mission centric or have specific things in. You put things where you want. You handcraft little sections of it. But nobody in Ghost of Tsushima put every single tree there by hand. That's not that would take decades.
Yeah.
But
it's not like, my point is, it's not like No Man's Sky, where it's literally the whole thing is procedurally generated.
I think it is.
Oh, you
more
think
or less.
it is?
I think the baseline probably is, and then you go in and you tweak everything the way you want it to be. So I would guess that, say you've got an ice ball moon somewhere, there's probably 5 or 6 interesting things on it. But I'm sure you'll have some kind of scanner to tell you where the interesting things are. And otherwise, if you land random place, you could just probably drill for sulfur or whatever, or whatever you want resource-wise, but otherwise there's not much around unless you're actively looking for something. So I would guess like almost everything would have like some kind of, even you could procedurally generate a procedurally generated dungeon on like each move. Like you wouldn't, you wouldn't have to do much with it. And like sometimes, certainly, if you play Skyrim long enough, it feels like that's what they did.
Yeah,
it's just like I don't feel like a lot of handcrafting in some of those one-off dungeon little caves you find and stuff. So that's what I expect it to be. I expect it to be kind of like Mass Effect's planets, where it's like, okay, there's like 5 things around, but otherwise there's just a lot of space. And look, you need boring places in space exploration games. You need, Elite Dangerous knows this too. You need places that aren't interesting to highlight the parts that are interesting.
Yeah, because otherwise it just turns into a drone.
One of the, I love No Man's Sky. Everybody knows I love No Man's Sky. But one of the shortcomings of No Man's Sky is that when you find, an observatory or a ruined building or an ancient monument, they're all the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're all going to do the same thing. You're going to look at this, and it's going to teach you words from the language. But I've known all the words in the languages for, 4 years at this point. So, none of that does me any good. Whereas a Bethesda game, I'm sure, will have some kind of rudimentary lore or story in it, where you're going to be able to go or find a useful item or something. That's the kind of stuff that No Man's Sky doesn't have, that Bethesda specializes in, and what I think will make it different. Also, it looks very more realistic. They're trying to do some kind of, they're setting it in 2330, and they're trying to make it like some kind of believable hard sci-fi thing, whereas No Man's Sky is just like
complete fantasy,
cosmic horror on the cover of an Isaac Asimov book, which which is great. This basically what I'm saying is there's been some editorials from a couple of places that I expect better from, I should add, that it's just the same. It's I can't imagine anyone's going to play both of those games and say there's only room for one of them in their library.
Oh yeah, no way.
It's they are not replaced. It's like,
I mean, I'll be honest. I kind of, when I played No Man's Sky, I wanted it to be what Starfield is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think some of the skepticism on having that delivered now is just because it's Bethesda.
Yeah.
Nobody trusts Todd, basically. But
which is a shame. He earned it. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they I mean, we had to sit through some Fallout 76 stuff. The big reminder of why we're there.
All their games launch buggy and sometimes borderline unplayable.
I mean, Fallout 76 was just not a good idea.
That was kind of the final nut on the wheel.
Yeah, it was just sort of oh, you thought, and look how long it's been since so I think at least subliminally people realize oh, this is all we're getting from them for years.
Yeah.
Years. And that was it. That was all they put out. That was all they put out in that generation, basically, other than the remasters of things.
Yeah.
It's to some degree I get it. I understand why PS3 owners are still bitter about what Skyrim was. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, to me, the whole it's like No Man's Sky thing is about as insightful as saying Quake looks like Doom.
Yeah.
It's okay. And
vaguely. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. They're both first-person shooters. What's your point?
War.
Yeah. There's a rocket launcher in both of them. Clearly, there's no originality left. It's what are you talking? Who cares?
Yeah.
It's nonsense to me. And it's sad because it's the only thing.
I didn't even notice that was a big thing since that
precedent. A bunch of articles have come and there's been some people mocking it or whatever, and I've noticed it because I think it's a dumb comparison. I mean, it's an obvious.
I don't spend a lot of
time.
It's
not a dumb comparison, but it's an obvious comparison. It's okay, and it's
yeah.
What's your point? What is it? What do you mean? You're not going to buy it because you think it looks like No Man's Sky?
They just think they're making some kind of a profound point. I believe.
There's people. I mean, there were people
because
saying.
Let's be honest.
There are people saying Hello Games should sue them. And I'm just no. What?
Let's be honest. That's the currency of social media. Is what you perceive to be a clever take. You're I came up with something. Let me see how many likes I get. I hate that whole culture. I hardly spend any time on Twitter because I don't need to. I have sifted. I definitely don't need to go on Twitter for any games information.
Yeah. Well, certainly the thing to remember about Twitter is that it's a sliver of a sliver.
Right.
You can't extrapolate how any kind of majority feels from what people are saying on Twitter.
That's true. Yeah. I think a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah. Because it's 10% of the country has Twitter accounts, and 10% of those people tweet at all.
Actually tweet at
all. And then
1%
of that 10% does 80% of the tweeting.
The tweeting.
So it's you're seeing a tiny fraction of people that do not represent, statistically simply are not representative of anything except themselves.
Yep.
But sometimes it's a good place to see where all the headlines for the various editorials are going up, and I'm just like, really, guys? Like, you thought that? I mean, I realize you got to fill a quota, you got to write what you got to write and get the clicks, but. Bleh.
I don't understand how a lot of these journalists
and also
have the time to spend so much time on Twitter.
Also, that is
what are you
because
doing?
that's where you get the engagement. Because the numbers in engagement and clicks are so low now in game journalism that is actually a good use of their time.
Wow. I just don't have time.
It's
I'm always working on something.
It's not the old days.
Done.
It's not the old. Well, that might be part of the problem.
Maybe.
It's
Maybe
not the old days when you wanted 100,000 views on something if it was just a standard story you put up that day. Like that kind of traffic doesn't exist anymore unless maybe you're IGN.
Yeah.
And even IGN put up their own comparison. But the other thing is that's all anybody was talking about
that's
that
a shame,
presentation.
There was a lot
there's a lot of other stuff in that presentation, but everyone's I guess obviously Starfield's going to be a big deal. But all it was like skepticism about Starfield, and sure, but it's also like I don't know, man. Like maybe it's just I'm too old for this, but it's like. Every game looks like a minor miracle to someone who grew up with an Apple IIe.
Yeah,
that's
true.
that character.
Our perspective is different.
In the one shot of the Starfield trailer, that character's face doesn't animate on the right side. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, the faces I grew up watching were 14 pixels with holes in them to be eyes.
We definitely have a different perspective.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, I
we
can
appreciate things a lot more.
I can see things that are like less or better or whatever, but like. Starfield is a miracle.
Yeah.
Starfield, I can't, even with all its shortcomings, whatever bugs it launches, there's going to be part of me this is like, yep, this is the game that was in my head when I was 10. I didn't think it would ever exist. You go back and show that trailer to 10-year-old me in 1986, and I would probably just die.
You'd faint.
Yeah, I would not be able to handle it.
Like a fainting goat.
Like, show me a video game that looks better than movies did. Then.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about one, actually, here in a little bit on this episode of the show. Let's see. I'm in a really good mood today. I really feel like when E3 ends, or Summer Game Fest, whatever you want to call it, to me that's like the official kickoff of summer. That's when I know summer's here, and like maybe I can start thinking about like maybe a little like long weekend vacation or whatever. I'm wearing shorts today. I don't know if I've ever worn shorts to record GameFace. I am just in that state of mind. The kick the feet up, enjoy life.
It's also a little warm in here. I turned the air conditioning on.
I've got to wear shorts then. But I hope you guys are too. I hope you guys are kind of in the afterglow of all the great stuff that we got to see over the last week or so. As I said, we're going to wrap all that stuff up for you guys today. And actually, before we get going here, let's pop into chat and see what's up with you guys today. I hope you guys are having a great day like I am. Nice legs. Definitely not. You guys may want to put on some sunglasses to make sure my legs don't blind you, because my legs are about as white as they get. I appreciate the compliment, though, Sneaky. That's great. Dan Boy says you can steal spaceships. I am excited. Okay, that's cool. Commander Fett says, for me it was Fallout 4. I lost so much faith in Bethesda after that game. I actually really liked Fallout 4. I know Matt did not, but... Yeah, I did. I mean, I admit that a lot of my dislike of Fallout 4 is just specific to me, like things I don't like about how they did things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like Fallout 4 was the worst thing they've ever made to me. Yeah. Veritas says, still haven't fixed Matt's mic clipping. There's no way to fix it. Matt, I don't know if you realize this or not, but when you get really excited,
I lean in.
You lean into the microphone. So when I go home to start working on the show and I lay it out on a timeline, I can see all these spikes.
Pops, yeah.
And there's no setting I can set it on to keep that from happening with Matt. So maybe you could try to think about it, but I just think it's just in you. I don't think you're going to be able to change.
No, I lean into someone's face when I'm yelling at them, too. Like, that's just how it is.
Yeah. So anyway...
The microphone is all of you.
Yeah. So I know on the live show, a lot of times there is clipping when Matt gets real excited about something, but I do go in, and when I lay the show out in a timeline, I go in and like take the volume down on each one of those. So the archives usually sound really good, but I hear you. But it's Matt. That's just the way it is, and that's the way we're going to roll.
Hear you. They hear me.
See, you just did it.
Yep. That was intentional.
Sneaky asks, would you rather 100 planets made very good or 1,000 okay planets?
I think there will be 100 very good planets.
Yeah.
And then 900 okay planets, and I'd rather have that.
I'd rather have what Starfield is doing than just having randomly generated billions of planets.
I think it's a good.
I never touched.
Also, it's a good medium between like
half, not even half. I never touched like 99.9% of the planets in No Man's Sky. I never went to.
No one will. Like,
or ever will.
There's too many for all of humanity to find in all the time we've existed. Like, so there's that end of the scale, and there's like something like Outer Worlds, which is like 5.
Yeah.
And I think this is a pretty good medium target. It's more than it's enough to sound impressive, but not so much that I think that everything's just going to be a garage shaded ball.
Yeah.
More manageable than what and the whole thing is more manageable than what Elite Dangerous is doing, because that's a full replication of the Milky Way, and it's more manageable than what Star Citizen is doing, because they're not trying to simulate going to the bathroom and getting up every morning and doing all this. And it's
the inane stuff.
That game.
Yeah.
Just every time I read something about it, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, they put up. I mean, I get all the updates because I'm a backer. I mean, from 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago.
That's hard to believe.
And I have a bunch of like the other ships in the. I could put like $700-800 in before they stopped doing the lifetime insurance thing. But like, so I get all the updates and stuff. It's like they started this whole new like they want like accurate soft body physics on the sheets. Like they're like launching. They're doing this whole thing now. They keep doing updates of it. It's like, oh, we're gonna figure out so when a character lays down on a bed, all the sheets deform properly. And I'm like, make the game. Like, what are you fucking doing? Like, who gives a shit? Like, and because the thing is so buggy and the alpha's so nonsense. Like, when the game launches, no one's gonna lay down in the bed. The character model's just gonna T-pose standing up on the bed, and you're just like, well, I guess we'll fix that later. It's just like, it's so dumb. Just put everyone who's in Squadron 42 is gonna be dead by the time they put that game out. It's ridiculous. I just want to play a Wing Commander game, people. Yeah. Just put out the Wing Commander thing.
Yeah.
That's why I want EA to sell itself, because maybe somebody will make a Wing Commander game again, and I don't have to worry about Star Citizen anymore.
Yeah. Let's see. Before we get going, let's check in on chat again. Iviz, thank you for Twitch Prime. I know a lot of you guys gave us Twitch Prime during. Oh, here's a couple. Lettuce7, thank you for Twitch Prime. There's a couple. Nerdcast MX, thank you for Twitch Prime. First time chat, LeBeau81, hello. Welcome to our live stream of GameFace. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Hope you will come back and join us for future episodes. What else we got here? Iviz, first time chat. You've been on our stream for forever. Yeah, I remember seeing you so many times, and they're saying it's your first time. Well, hello from London. Hello from Los Angeles, friend. Hope you're enjoying the show. Croak, thank you for the 100 bits. That's awesome, man. Immortan Joe, congrats. I'm trying to like and comment on YouTube to help with engagement too. Thank you. That's really important. Even if you guys are patrons or subscribers to our content, you can still go and like and leave comments on the public versions of our stuff that goes up a few days later for everybody else on our YouTube channel. We need that engagement. It helps with the algorithm. At least I think it does.
In theory, nobody knows for sure.
So I appreciate that, man. That's really awesome. Immortan Joe.
That's from Fury Road.
Ah, okay. Oh, all right. And thank you again for Twitch Prime, Iviz. You the man. Twitter hating things? No. That's Veritas. Okay, I think that's it. People dropping the NASA punk line. People have picked up on that for sure.
Yeah, I noticed they're not bringing that up anymore.
No, they dropped it. Minority Games, thank you for subscribing. That's awesome. AJ the Legend Watson, look at you, giving out the Tier 1 subs to people in our chat. Another reason why you should show up and watch the show live. Johnny Hurricane, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome, man. I hope you're doing good. Croak with more bits. Surf Spider with Twitch Prime. All right, I think we're finally caught up. I think we're ready to get on with the show proper, but before we do that, here is a word from our sponsor. A once-in-a-lifetime property is now available in Northwest Montana, featuring 92 acres of gorgeous wilderness, approximately 1 mile along the Blue Ribbon, trout-rated Kootenai River, and an eye-popping view of the Cabernet Mountain Wilderness area. This is truly an outdoorsman's paradise. You can use the restored and remodeled barn with living quarters as a year-round home, vacation cabin, fishing retreat, horse ranch, or cattle ranch. Contact Doug DeShazer today for additional pictures, information, and an opportunity to view this very special piece of Montana. And with interest rates starting to rise, now is the time to pull the trigger on a home or property. Even if you're not able to relocate to Montana, worry not, sifters. Doug DeShazer has facilitated home and land sales in California, Texas, Oregon, Washington, and many other states. He can find you the perfect real estate agent for the job, no matter where you live in the U.S. Feel free to contact Doug with any questions regarding real estate at deshazermt@gmail.com or give him a call at 406-291-1643. That's 406-291-1643. Thanks again to DeShazer Ryan Realty for sponsoring GameFace. If you'd like to do that yourself, and you can sponsor anything. You can sponsor your own YouTube channel if you want, or your own Twitch channel. Just head to patreon.com/sifted and check out the tiers there, and you can find out about sponsoring the show. And with that, it's time to get on with GameFace 304, Matt. We have a good show today, I think. I think we have an awesome show. I saw some people in chat being like, man, there's nothing going on. Yeah, there is. We got good stuff today, and I'm excited about this show. iViz explains that he had to create a new account, so that's why we've seen him around, but he just got his first-time chat badge or whatever. Also, we're on level 4 of the Hype Train already. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. Croak, dropping some Tier 1 subs as well. You guys are great, man. Thanks. Really appreciate all the support you guys are giving us. We need it. Okay, we're going to kick things off today discussing the rest of Summer Game Fest, E3 2022, whatever you want to call it. The other big event that we have yet to talk about in any capacity between you and I is Geoff's big Summer Game Fest live stream that happened late last week, and it was huge. I've got a list here of all the stuff. And I don't know if you guys can really see it. Let me switch to my camera here. It's just a quick rundown of everything that was in it. And it was a lot, man. The show was loaded, but I don't know if it was loaded with stuff that most people care that much.
Had a lot of content.
There was a lot there, but a lot of it felt pretty vapid. I would argue he probably could have cut it down to an hour, and it would have been amazing. And instead it was 2 hours, and good, but not great, I would argue. And he's also, you can see the lower third there says, Fest for the rest. He was fighting an uphill battle here because Xbox and Bethesda decided it was going to do its thing. Although I would argue that it didn't seem like it hurt him all that much because there wasn't a lot of third-party stuff in Bethesda and Xbox's presser. So it seemed like maybe he could have scored a little bit more of the big third-party stuff than he did. But still, he got some pretty good stuff, and I would argue more stuff than I thought he was going to get before I watched it. What were your overall impressions of Summer Game Fest, Matt?
I'll be honest, I can't really remember much of it.
Isn't that an indictment on,
Yeah.
on Summer Game Fest?
Yeah, I mean,
Did you watch the whole 2 hours?
Yeah. I remember Last of Us and Batman and
Batman?
a couple indie
You
things.
mean Gotham Knights?
Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
A couple indie things.
And you remember Gotham Knights probably because it didn't look...
It was just horrible. And
Oh,
I remember
man.
those two because they're the last things in the show. Basically.
Right.
I mean, there was Callisto Protocol. There was some,
Yeah. There actually was a lot. We're going to discuss... like I just showed you the list. There's a ton of stuff, but I chopped it down to probably like 9 or 10 things that we're going to discuss. There were no big game reveals per se.
No,
like,
which he said.
he had said beforehand that was going to be the case, so fair play.
Game Awards is for the reveals. Summer Game Fest is for... I don't know. I don't know what it's for. I don't know.
So the other thing too was there was actually an in-person element to Summer Game Fest. And what it really amounted to is that Street Fighter 6 was there. and then everybody played the crap out of Street Fighter 6 and reported on it. But it was smaller even than the year that E3 was in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
That was 2006, I think, or 2005. I can't remember which.
No, it was 6 or 7.
Okay.
2005 was the first year we did live.
Right. Yeah, so it was 6 or 7. And that was really disappointing. I remember going to that and I was like, this is E3?
Yeah, it was like 2 lines of like 12 kiosks.
And still probably double the size of what Geoff had for an in-person event. Doesn't seem like a lot of news came from it. It just seemed more symbolic than anything. Like him planting his flag and saying, this is what Summer Game Fest is going to be. This is the beginning. and next year I want this part of it to be bigger and better. So
Yeah.
right now we had the ESA come out and say, we're doing E3 in person and digital next year. And the very next day, Geoff Keighley saying, I'm doing Summer Game Fest next year, same week, and it's also going to be digital and physical. How is that going to shake out, Matt?
I don't know. We'll see if the ESA even does it.
Yeah.
You know, at least I know Jeff's really going to do it.
He will do it.
Yeah.
Unless ESA signs some kind of a deal with him.
Yeah, I think he's done with that.
Yeah.
Like
messing with the ESA.
Like all the talk, even before the pandemic, all the talk was like he's done with the ESA.
Mm-hmm. I think you may be right. And what would happen if they both try to do it? Or if they both do it? What would happen?
Nothing, really.
Imagine if...
Like, people would go to both.
Imagine if there's the E3 at the convention center that the ESA throws, and then Geoff has some other in-person thing.
I think Jeff's thing would become where all the industry people go.
You think?
Because everyone knows Geoff, and we all know each other, and that would be a place that the public couldn't get into necessarily the same way.
I think, like, our circle of friends would probably attend Jeff's thing.
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to be more casual.
And we just, like, watch streams of E3. of the show floor was like, glad we're not there.
Yeah.
And at least there's stuff to play here, unlike the Marriott lobby. You know?
Right.
Like I could see it becoming like a hangout for the old guard journalists and devs who don't want to be bothered.
Right. Like it's kind of a safe haven they can go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you just go to the floor when you have business.
How do you think that'll be for the industry if there's two events at once? Is that good or bad?
I don't know.
It's hard to really figure out, isn't it?
I mean, it might be. I mean, I'm sure Jeff's plan there is he's serving a need and a desire, which is that like the people who like kind of really are part of the industry and are sort of the luminaries want it to be a certain way, and the ESA wants to basically do Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. And so this sort of allows Geoff to, Geoff. I think what he's. I mean, I'm sure there will be like some public presence, but like. I think Geoff is basically doing his theory here is like, what if I just do Pactor's Party for a week?
Pretty much. It kind of seems that way.
While the ESA does this thing where like, because more and more I noticed as in the last years of E3, like, the people whose names I recognize, the people I know, never went to the floor unless they had, if they had an appointment, you go out there. But mostly they just hung out at bars or in meeting rooms or anywhere but E3.
Yeah.
And maybe Geoff sees an opportunity to sort of have those people all on hand. Mm-hmm. And, like, frankly, if that's where those people are, that's where E3 is.
It is, yeah.
So that's where you build from, is, like, if you can attract, if you can attract, like, the head of Respawn and the heads of EA and then the people that make the games want to hang out where you are, and then the journalists follow them, like, what's at E3 anymore?
Yeah.
It's basically just, like, an event for the public, which
games.
might as well be... Yeah, but not games you can get your hands on.
Right.
Because like no one plays the games on the floor in the press or the industry.
I mean, there's a few publishers that still like Bandai Namco,
sure, but
Ubisoft.
But when was the last time you did that and didn't just have an appointment?
Oh, you mean us?
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Like that part of the show is really not relevant to the people that would be going to Jeff's thing.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you have an appointment, you don't even go into the booth where everyone else is playing it. You go into a private room in the back where it's a little
or you go to
quiet.
a totally separate meeting room in a completely different part
in
of the
a
convention.
hotel across
or in the hotel, in the Marriott.
Yeah.
Like that happens a lot. Like like I know people that have done their entire E3 business in 2017 on never leaving that hotel.
Yeah. It's changing, or changed really. It's not even changing; it's changed.
So ESA gets to do whatever passes for spectacle on the floor for the people they're charging money to attend, and Geoff sort of takes over the industry side of things and the press side of things. I could see that happening.
Yeah. I'm a little sad we're not going to be doing our best of E3 awards this year. For the first time ever in the history of Sifted, we will not be doing them because it's just not right.
There's nothing to
I've not played anything. So, I mean, and really no one has other than Street Fighter at Jeff's little in-person thing that he did. And actually, we're going to kick off the discussion of Summer Game Fest big production with Street Fighter 6. He showed the first trailer for Guile, one of my favorite Street Fighter characters of all time. How do you feel about Guile, Matt?
Oh, he was my main guy in 4.
Oh, he was your main?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That it took me forever when I was a young lad to get the backflip kick in the arcades because it's different from a lot of the other moves that you would do in Street Fighter back in the day. But once I got it, I loved it because you could just sit there crouched and just wait for people to jump in And against most other characters, it would win almost every time.
Well, Guile's the best character in the first Street Fighter 2.
He is, yeah,
like,
for sure.
That's like the whole thing. Is like you put up Street Fighter 2, vanilla Street Fighter 2 in front of some Street Fighter pros, and it's just like who can get to Guile first.
Yeah,
that's it, because you can't pick the same character
right
in the original one.
It was a race.
And like that's literally like there's people I know who just like they won't you cannot beat them as like even like you're talking about like Justin Wong versus like
no
Alex
matter
Valle.
who
It's like if whoever gets Guile's gonna win.
Yeah,
like,
if they know how to use it.
If you get touched, you're dead.
Yeah,
that's it. Like
yeah.
Because that game is broken, and like but it's broke because it's broken is why combos exist. Like it's
true.
that's why all those versions came out. But like at high levels of play, Guile is unbeatable in the original Street Fighter 2. Not so much after that.
Yeah, they definitely nerfed him over time.
But I still enjoyed him very much in 4, which was unusual because I'm not usually a charge character person. But he just kind of clicked with me, and I was decent with him.
What have you thought about Street Fighter now that we've seen so much of it over the last week?
I mean, it looks interesting. It's different, like with the heart attacks and the more like based around kind of like give and take counter stuff.
Well, I said Chun-Li gameplay came out of.
I'm still not a big fan of the art style. Like I don't like how Guile looks in this. Really,
I don't
like
either.
The Guile usually, like he's not a skinny guy, but he doesn't look like that. It's
beefcake.
Like I don't know why he's got shoulders like the size of a couch. But like a lot of it looks cool. If I can get that's a cool super like I don't know. I got to get my hands on it, I guess. But
what did you think of the Chun-Li stuff that you've seen?
It was good. I mean. Chun-Li. I don't have much of a response. It's just like it's Street Fighter. Like I acknowledge it's Street Fighter.
You think it's smarter to show the original 8 guys when you're first starting your promotional cycle?
I think people care more about that, and I think they have more of a frame of reference for like what they were before to see what the differences are. Like if you show me something like Luke, I'm not going to really understand. I'm going to be like, okay, that's new, but like,
it's a good point.
If you're watching a character you're familiar with, it's easier to sort of pick out the differences and the new stuff, and that's an old move, but it seems to work like this now, so that must be because this system works like this, and that you have a lot more context when you're watching characters you're familiar with. So.
Yep. And my guess is, shortly we'll start getting some looks at the newer characters. Although they may go through the original 8 first.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
But it's been a big blowout for Street Fighter 6.
I think you probably do a thing where like you show two original characters and then throw in one of the new ones in. You put the pill in a little pocket of tasty meat.
Yeah, I think the game looks good. As I've watched more gameplay footage of it, I've started to understand the new fighting system a little more. And I think it's interesting and at least a little bit different from what I'm used to with Street Fighter. So that's exciting to me to kind of learn that new system that they've employed. The drive system, I believe it's called. So I think it looks good so far. I agree with you. I haven't liked the look of Street Fighter for a while, honestly.
Yeah, I think the look of it, I liked it in 4.
I did not.
And 5
really.
was okay, and 5 was a little rubbery for me. This is
plasticky.
This doesn't have the plasticky so much beyond like what is already inherent in that engine.
In that engine, yeah.
But like, I don't know. There's something about the proportions that I don't like in the characters in this.
I'm surprised the RE engine has proven to be very flexible.
Yeah, they built it. I mean,
they tout that thing. Every trailer for Capcom, they put up RE engine. It's this thing that everybody
they built a thing that did what they needed to do, which is just about everything. It's impressive. I mean, EA should have talked to them.
Probably still should be making games in Unreal Engine 5, but that's just my opinion. But yeah,
I don't know.
Everything I see from Unreal Engine 5,
Unreal Engine 5 has never. Unreal Engine 5 maybe. But we don't know what the capability. Unreal Engine has been not great for fighting games for a long time. I mean, it took NetherRealms a long time to kind of get their head around that and updates. Working with Epic to get Go look at those original, Unreal 3 Mortal Kombats, and they are rough. And part of that's just NetherRealm's weird art style, but it's Unreal Engine doesn't do everything great.
Yeah,
they're getting there.
Over time, it keeps inching in that direction, though.
As you work on it, and they add new tools, and they add, they like, oh, we need this to work like, and that's the bonus of the advantage of Epic is like you can go to them, especially if you're a prominent AAA developer, and be like, yeah, we'd like it if they could do something like this, and they'll be like, okay, we can work with that. So
yeah.
That helps. I mean, we'll see what Unreal Engine 5 can churn out. I'm very.
I mean, we're starting to see it.
But I'm very curious. Yeah, but those aren't fighting games.
Yeah,
but
every game that I see, I can tell it's Unreal Engine 5.
But I'm very curious to see what fatalities will look like in Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh my gosh!
I predicted
so
in the next Mortal Kombat we will finally see a fatality where when the intestines are ruptured, actual fecal matter comes out.
Oh no, they won't go that far.
I think they will.
You really think they will?
I think that's the kind of brains you're dealing with over there.
Wow.
That is like you were talking about, like being like younger and watching Evil Dead and loving all the crazy gore kills and stuff. Like that's what Mortal Kombat is now.
It kind of is. Yeah.
I mean, it always was to some degree, but now they can really lean into it. I think you're going to see some anatomical violence in an Unreal Engine 5 Mortal Kombat.
Okay, next up, Aliens: Dark Descent. Matt, it feels like we've been waiting.
I missed this one because I went away from the computer for a while.
Oh, really?
And I came back and people were like, I'm like, there's another Aliens game? Like, what do you, come on. Like,
yeah.
How many times are we going to try this?
Unfortunately, this trailer does not really show off what the game is. It's just kind of a cinematic that sets up the tone of the game. But it's an isometric game that you play with your squad mates, but it is single player. And the write-up for the game says, infiltrate large open levels and annihilate enemies with your squad in an isometric perspective, dispatching orders strategically and intuitively at the touch of a button. Tread carefully, as your foes will adapt their tactics to your actions while hunting you down, because death is permanent. Forge unique paths for survival, uncovering shortcuts, creating safe zones, and setting up motion trackers, which I think is really cool, in a persistent world where your actions impact levels forever. I'm not sure what that means.
Imagine if you blow a wall up, that wall's staying blown
Stays there forever, I guess. Which means I'm guessing you would come back to that level, that area later. I like the whole concept of using motion trackers. That is a huge part of the films that I feel like games have never really got right. And I don't know if this game will get it right either.
The original Alien vs. Predator shooters did.
Yeah, because it had it on the gun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they haven't been
Isolation
a big part
did.
of the games.
Isolation, the motion tracker was your lifeline.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's true. So, yeah, maybe I'm wrong on that one. Maybe they have done a pretty good job. But I love that it's going to be more of like something where you set them up across the map in hopes of like creating this web that will detect the aliens before they come in and maybe give yourself a little bit of an advantage against the xenomorphs. But, again, the trailer doesn't really show what the game is really about. It's just more of a tone setter, introducing some of the characters. But it plays isometric. The characters on the screen are small. But the game looks good. For some reason, Matt, when I see isometric games, I always my brain jumps to indie for some reason. I don't know why that is. And I always think that
Diablo's isometric.
I know. And that's my exception, I think.
This sounds like XCOM a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't think it's not turn-based.
No, but what they're talking about is very XCOM-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're going to talk about a game here in a minute that we thought was XCOM-ish, but it turns out it really isn't all that XCOM-ish.
Baldur's Gate Dark World. I don't associate that perspective with indie. Just because all the games that those are all pretty major games. I guess you're more likely to see an indie game these days using that perspective, but I don't know. It's
an easy way to where you don't have to make sure that the graphics are spanking top level.
Except every isometric game I can think of in recent years has done that. The Ascent is some of the most detailed graphics I've ever seen in anything.
But if you zoom in on the character models in that game, they're not what you'd expect from modern games.
But they're still real damn good.
Yeah. They have a distinctive art style in particular with that game. But generally, when you create isometric games, you can get away with the character models and other objects not looking as good as they would be if you were up close in a first person or a third person perspective.
Yeah, I don't think that's why people choose that perspective, though.
I don't either. I think in this case they thought it was a good way to represent the IP, and I agree. Mm-hmm. I think it could be maybe the first really good Aliens game since Alien Isolation. So I'm pretty excited for this, honestly. It's a different take on it, and I feel like it maybe should have been tried a long time ago. But we're finally getting it here. And next up, another game with space aliens to fight. And honestly, kind of the whole tone of Summer Game Fest in general. Callisto Protocol, the debut gameplay, was shown on Geoff's stream at Summer Games Fest. We got the gameplay trailer before, and then Geoff had this first patch of real in-engine gameplay from the game. And in general, the Dead Space clone was a thing at Summer Game Fest /E3.
There's a lot of games where you are exploring a derelict space station
as an engineer or just some Joe Blow guy who isn't a superhero, isn't a super soldier, just kind of stumbles upon this place where all this insane stuff is happening with aliens and you have to kill them. What did you think of this first look at Callisto Protocol?
I mean, it looks cool. Like, I definitely see the Dead Space pedigree.
Yep. Generic weapons, but you can still dismember. So there's a shot here where he blows the guy's leg off, and there goes the arm. So there's still dismemberment in the game. You're just not using this very specific tool for it. You're just using regular guns, quote unquote, to
those
dismember.
guns seem to have some special properties to them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's ammo type or something.
Yeah. But I thought it looks like a new Dead Space.
Yeah.
It really does. As it should probably, considering the person making it is the person who created Dead Space in the first place. Lots of violence, lots of gore. There's a nice finisher to finish off this little clip of gameplay. Obviously in Dead Space and in then Resident Evil 4, death animation's a big deal. It looks like that's going to be the case for Callisto Protocol as well. There's a scene coming up here where he gets put into a grinder. The protagonist gets put into a grinder. And that's kind of where they finish the whole little gameplay snippet. But I think the game looks great. And as we said, there are all these Dead Space clones coming now. This looks like the best of them all. It looks better than the Dead Space remake.
Like, I feel sorry for the other games that had to follow this.
Right.
That were similar bent.
Yeah. And there are so many. Why do you think that's happening, Matt? Why do you think there's so many?
I think it's that thing where it's like every once in a while you get like, so there's clearly some kind of like telekinetic gun thing there. You've got some.
He tossed the enemy into the fan there. And look at the reticle on the gun, too. It looks like you can flip the orientation of it like you could with the... Yeah, there you go. Yep. They pulled no punches with that one, that's for sure. But it looks awesome. I'm really excited for the game. Mm-hmm. It's still supposed to come out in December 2nd. So it looks like it's going to make it this year. It could sneak in there for Game of the Year contender at the last minute.
Yeah, although not at the Game Awards.
Yeah. Yeah, because it will be disqualified.
Past the cutoff.
Yeah, it'll miss the cutoff.
So it'll be forgotten the following year.
Yeah, probably, because, dude, next year is going to be, I hope, it should be insane. It may be one of the best years ever for games, because we're getting, 2 years of delayed games all shoved into one 12-month period. So it should be awesome. But speaking of awesome, I think Callisto Protocol looks awesome. It has become one of my most anticipated games for the rest of the year. Maybe... depending on what happens with God of War, my most anticipated. But right now, I'd be like God of War, Callisto Protocol. In that order.
I think I'd be God of War, Xenoblade Chronicles. Probably, maybe Callisto Protocol after that. I might be forgetting something.
You're not, because there's nothing else. There's Saints Row.
I'm interested in Saints Row.
And I'm excited for that, but not as excited as I am
I'd probably
for
put
Callisto.
Saints Row over Callisto Protocol. I'm not.
Oh, really?
I'm not a huge... you know me. I don't care about horror stuff that much.
Okay. So anyway, that game's looking hot, and it was one of the big games of Summer Game Fest in general. It started out with the gameplay trailer, finished off with... and actually they ended up putting out a Schofield cut of that trailer that had even more gore in it, an extended trailer, and then it follows up with this first, it's just 2 minutes of gameplay, which is a little strange, but followed it up with that, and I think overall a really, really good showing for that game in general. Next up, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2... complete remake, retool, rejob. This game is almost photorealistic at times. But it's still Call of Duty. And even though I am a big fan of Modern Warfare 2, it's one of the highest scores I've ever given to a first-person shooter in my career. I thought it was amazing. And at the time, it was probably the best shooter I had ever played. I'm struggling to get too excited for this. Are you?
I mean, I'm interested to play it again just to see what I think of it again, because I also thought it. I think Modern Warfare 2 is the best Call of Duty they've ever made.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that most of my judgment comes from campaign,
right?
Not multiplayer.
Yep.
But this is the closest they ever got to telling a really good story.
Yeah.
1 and 2.
These are the characters that people care the most about.
Yeah.
I would
1
argue.
and 2 put together were the most compelling, and then 3 is just what a disaster. Because 3 wasn't made by the people who made these games. The people who made 1 and 2 had already gone on to form Respawn by then. But yeah, these two get. I gotta be honest. I've played Modern Warfare 2 probably 5 times, and I don't recognize this.
I don't know. I know. What's this mission?
I wouldn't know. This is the first mission. The first mission on the rig, but it's a little different.
It looks completely different.
It's not. I don't recognize it. It's
I don't
just
either. It does not feel familiar to me at all.
No, which is good. It's that's a solid remake. But yeah, this is that opening level. It's just like the realism there is a whole nother level.
I mean, graphically, the game's looking amazing. And I do wonder what may happen for this franchise when it finally leaves last-gen consoles in the dust and is only made for PS5 and Xbox Series. Because they're doing a pretty damn good job straddling the line already, honestly.
I mean, like I said, like a lot of the stuff with like the next-gen thing is just, you're just turning the settings up to a degree you couldn't on the old hardware.
Well,
that's all.
I mean... ray tracing, and there's a bunch of
ray
stuff.
Tracing is one of those settings. Like, there's nothing there that says you can't put ray tracing in a game that also runs on PS4 because you just turn them off on PS4.
A lot of developers just don't do it.
Yeah, well, because it's not worth it, or it.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Matt. And look, I have started buying.
I remember
PS4 and Xbox One versions of games because the third-party games, it's not worth spending the extra $10. It's not. You can play it, the PS4 or the Xbox One version of games on your PS5 or Xbox Series, and it still runs in 4K and looks amazing.
The Xbox versions are all the same version.
Right.
Like, there is no difference
But
between them.
You know what? They still sell the Series version for an extra $10.
I've never seen that.
They do.
Like what?
The game that we're going to talk about today, I am playing the Xbox One version of the Quarry, and it is Xbox One. But Halo Infinite, the box art for that just says Xbox.
Right. They're all like that.
No, I just literally bought the Quarry.
I looked at the Quarry, and there was a $60 version. There's like 3 versions of the Quarry.
Well, there's the $60 version. There's the $70 version for Series.
The $70 version has like deluxe stuff in it.
I don't know.
It's not. Only PlayStation is doing $70 for the next gen version. Like
the box art says Xbox One on it. I should have brought it, but yeah, it says Xbox One because I stacked it. After I put it in the console,
that's a change then, because for as far as I know, Microsoft made a big deal about the fact that like there is no distinction. Like the disc for the Xbox One is the same as the disc for the Series. Like there are no differences.
Yeah, the box art says Xbox One on it specifically because I put it when I stacked it on my shelf. I put it right on top of Halo Infinite. What'd you say?
Where'd you get it?
Best Buy.
I swear, because I almost bought the Quarry because I was like, oh, you played it, and then I looked at it. I don't want to because it doesn't look like interesting to me. Also,
you should have.
Also, I don't believe you. Also, not for me anyway. I just don't care about that format of game. Also, I thought it was weird that, we'll get to the Quarry.
Yeah.
I looked at it, I'm just like, oh, the multiplayer. I don't care about the multiplayer. It was like, it doesn't go up till July 8th. I'm not giving you money for an unfinished game. Like, come on. Like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
I don't buy PlayStation 5 unless it's exclusive.
I've been doing the same thing with PS. I've been buying PS4 games instead of PS5. I started buying the PS5 third-party stuff, and then I realized third parties aren't writing to the metal on PS5. Like, if you can buy the PS4 version, it looks the same. So only
I just don't have any
first-party
third-party
stuff.
games, really.
I only buy the first-party stuff for PS5.
But like, you are looking at things, like the ray tracing thing. That stuff comes later a lot of times because like, look at Horizon. Look at the new patch that just went up, and now performance mode looks as good as quality did. It's just there's no reason to kill yourself to get that out at launch because there weren't enough PS5s out there at the time.
Erebus Jones brings up that even Call of Duty on Xbox, you have to pay extra $10 for the Series version.
Activision did do that.
Not a surprise.
I remember that Activision, I think, was the first one to say they were doing that.
Yeah.
But Xbox stuff generally doesn't do that. Certainly Microsoft's own published stuff isn't like that.
Yeah. One of the new pieces of tech in this new Modern Warfare is the water system. And yeah, like you can tell that it's new tech for Call of Duty games. It looks amazing, the water in this. And it makes a huge difference. Like, I can totally see why they chose this level to show off for the first gameplay. One, because it's the first mission in the game. And that's what kicks it off. But two, because it really shows off the advancements that they've made to the tech for the Call of Duty engine.
And it did the same for the original game, too. Like, that was,
did.
It was in the rain, and all the ship was moving, and the
Look
waves
at
were crashing over everything.
Look at the water in this, though, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, that was also true of the original at the time. Like, that was, it's the same demo, basically, with completely different tech.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks hot, man. Like, I'm actually pretty excited to play this, honestly.
I didn't get all the way through the Modern Warfare 1 remaster.
I didn't either. I played it enough to satisfy my curiosity.
Yeah.
And then I quit. I think I made it more than halfway.
Yeah, I got past, I got back to the nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
So I want to see what that looked like. But, it wasn't a whole lot
This game's going to sell like crazy.
Yeah.
This is going to be the best-selling game of the year by a mile. The last Modern Warfare 1 remake
unless they get
was the best-selling COD in
unless they
years.
get the GTA 5 current gen, next gen thing out.
I still think that it's too limited. There's not enough install base for that to beat Call of Duty. I don't know. We'll see. But I think this is going to sell through the roof, and hopefully it's good enough that it deserves it. But we'll see. And look at the water tech there. Like, it looking pretty hot, I got to say. And I have become glazed over when it comes to Call of Duty over the last, 3 or 4 years. Like, I have not been excited to check out a Call of Duty game in a really, really long time.
I haven't for a long
time.
Well, I think the last one I actually bothered to play was World War II.
Yeah.
Whenever that was.
Yeah.
Was that 3 years ago?
4, I think?
I can't remember.
Yeah. They all bleed together. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But anyway, that's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Complete Total Remake, and that is coming this year. And then we'll go 2 years without a Call of Duty game, which is pretty crazy to think about, leaving all that money on the table.
Yeah, you're going to need to remind me that that's happening next year because I'm not going to remember.
You wouldn't even notice. I hear you. Okay, so that's Call of Duty. Next up, a game that was first shown, I believe, in 2019, and I really liked it. And we talked about it on GameFace. We were both pretty excited for it, and then it just disappeared off the face of the earth for 3 years, and it just appeared out of nowhere on Summer Games Fest, and that is Witchfire.
Okay, so Don Lionheart is saying that that's not a remaster of Modern Warfare 2.
What is it?
What we just looked at. This is a sequel to the second Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
Because they did another Modern Warfare. This is not a game we've ever played before.
What do you mean?
He's saying this is a sequel to Modern Warfare, the recent 2019 Modern Warfare. It is not Modern Warfare 2 that Respawn's guys remade. This is because the Modern Warfare 1...
It was not a moment-for-moment remake of the first one, and that's what this is, too. They're taking liberties and changing things.
Not the remake. Modern Warfare was a different game.
Modern Warfare 1, you mean? The one that they released just not long ago?
A couple years ago, yeah.
No, it had a lot of the same scenes and scenarios and stuff in it.
I never played it, but they're saying this is a sequel to that. It's not a remake of the original Modern Warfare 2.
But it has all the same characters from Modern Warfare 2 in it.
Yeah, I mean Soap and all those guys,
Ghost
Price and everybody
yeah.
can be in there. Yeah,
yeah. So how do you do that after what's happened Beyond without it being a rework of the original game?
Because it's a different story, I guess.
They're creating parallel universes for Call of Duty now.
I mean, like you said, they do blend together.
That's a good point.
I mean, does it matter?
It doesn't, no. As long as it's good. That's all that matters.
So the Modern Warfare 2 remaster already exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a remake, though. This is
not a remake. This is a new game.
I don't think that's true.
That's what Activision would say, apparently. Modern Warfare 2019 was 100% different to COD 4. It's just except the characters. It's a totally different story, Erebus Jones says. So this is a completely new... That's why I don't recognize that beginning. It does seem to be also on an oil rig. Maybe that was Modern Warfare 1, though.
That is an oil rig. But
Modern Warfare 1, I might be thinking Modern Warfare 1, the original, where you start on where you attack the ship at the beginning.
No.
That's right. That's the beginning of that. You load out onto a ship.
So basically what they're saying is Call of Duty is that Activision has managed to find a way to bring back the characters that people actually care about.
But with a completely new story. That's
really weird. I don't know, man. I thought for sure there were scenarios in the game from 2019 that were in the original Call of Duty 4. I thought for sure there were.
I mean, I can't tell you one way or the other because I didn't play it.
Huh. I don't know. Well, we definitely need to clarify that. We'll talk about that next week on GameFace once I do a little investigating. But anyway, this is Witchfire. This is kind of a Doom-ish circle strafe style first-person shooter. It is having an early access period is coming up at the end of the year. That's exclusive to Epic Game Store. And for those of you who don't remember what this game is about, here's a quick synopsis that they provided. Armed with strange weapons and forbidden pagan magic, this isn't just a shooter. You can also cast magic in this game. Hunt a powerful witch holding the key to your salvation. Witchfire is a dark fantasy roguelite first-person shooter from the creators of Painkiller, Bulletstorm, and The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Now, when they say that, it isn't the same studio that made those games. It's people who worked on those games that are now on a new team working on...
People who no longer fly.
Right. Good one. Who are now working on Witchfire. But I want more shooters like this, Matt. Less military, more supernatural...
More boomer shooters?
Yeah. I'm all about more games like this.
This looks just like Doom.
You think?
There's no reason to play this game. It's Doom.
Really?
That's just like No Man's Sky and Starfield.
Oh, I see. I see what you're doing.
No reason for this game to exist. We've already got Doom. That's what I was told this week by the internet.
Well, I'm excited for this game. And there is an early access period coming before the end of the year. We don't know what the release date for it is yet. The other thing, too, is when it was announced as an Xbox One and PS4 game.
This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, but I think now it's probably been moved to, because this is the PC version we're seeing right now. Obviously, it's running in 4K.
I would imagine it's on everything now. Yeah.
Maybe. A lot of developers are starting to ditch PS4 and Xbox One, though.
Yeah, but if you developed it this long, again, it's just a setting. It's just a setting. Like, there's very little in any game that is going to be like, oh, we could only do this on the next gen systems. Like, there's very, very little that I can think of that would be outside of performance. Mm-hmm. And for that, again, you just turn the setting styles down. Like, there's not anything inherent to the new hardware that is just like, oh, you can do stuff that's never been seen before, that could never run on the... It's not a thing. It's just not a thing. Like, stuff like the Ratchet and Clank thing where you're running through portals and you need that speed of the hard drive, like, that's one thing, but that also couldn't work tremendously well on the Xbox. So, like, that's a PS5 specific thing, so you're not really going to be able to really do that on a multi-platform thing. Yeah. So I don't really... When people talk about, like, oh, I want stuff that could only be done on next gen, you're just talking about turning the settings dials up. Like, you're not I can't think of anything that you could do that on a next gen system that would just make it impossible to run in some lesser form on the PS4.
Well, there has to be extra work done if you want to get the most out of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And some developers will go that extra mile and include that in the base code. And you're right, at that point, then it is turning it on or off, but it still needs to be there to turn on or off. And some developers just don't go the extra mile when they're making that PS4 or Xbox One version. They'll just be like, you know what? We'll make this game so it looks as good as possible on PS4 and Xbox One. We're not going to add those extra things to turn on in our game. Some do, most don't, which is, again,
I can't really think of any.
I've reverted to buying PS4 and Xbox One versions of games when I can.
I can't particularly think of a lot that have done that. But...
DLSS. Ray tracing.
There's been ray tracing and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, typically, if you try to run ray tracing on a PS4, even a Pro, or
you would never turn the ray tracing on. You'd have to put it in the PS5, the next gen version.
Yeah, my point is that some developers don't put that in there.
And I'm trying to say, like, I can't recall a lot that don't do that.
I can.
Like, even Watch Dogs Legion had ray tracing.
Well, I would expect Ubisoft's games to.
Well, they didn't put it in Assassin's Creed.
But like,
Valhalla.
I'm playing the Quarry right now. It doesn't have ray tracing.
Yeah, but the Quarry doesn't look that great in the first place.
Oh, yeah, it does.
It doesn't look like that great to me.
Oh, just wait till you see this B-roll. It is going to blow your effing mind. I'm not kidding. It is one of the best... They should have
made a better trailer then.
Dude, I can't wait to talk about the Quarry, by the way. I'm really excited to talk about that game, but we'll get to it. Next up, one of the Dead Space clones that we were talking about, a game called Fort Solis. This is about as blatant a ripoff of Dead Space as you can get. Listen to even this description from the developers. A single-player third-person thriller set on the far side of Mars. Engineer Jack Leary responds to a routine alarm. Upon arriving at a dormant Fort Solis, he becomes unnerved by the lack of any staff at the base. Does this sound familiar to anyone? As the night grows longer, events begin to unravel and spiral out of control. The mystery of what Fort Solis was created for starts to appear along with its crew. Can Jack escape with what he has discovered? And more importantly, his life? And then they go on to say there are huge narrative moments that are fully playable with multiple outcomes. So it does seem like there's maybe a branching story path in this. And then it says each contains actions that have story-changing consequences. So it's Dead Space with a branching story path, basically.
Until Dead Space.
Actually, you're right. This game is just going to get lost in the mosh, right, Matt?
Probably.
Yeah.
Also, it's a terrible title.
It really is.
Like, Talk about it tells you nothing.
It should go toe-to-toe with The Quarry
yeah.
for most forgettable title for a video game.
Fort Solis.
Yeah, it's just so derivative. It doesn't look terrible.
No, it doesn't, but it's just like... It's so similar. I mean, this is actually so similar to Callisto Protocol and the Dead Space. I feel
you're like, why does it exist?
It's just going to get lost between those two things. And I'm sure those two things weren't in play when they started making this game.
Yeah.
But like,
I feel bad for this team.
Yeah.
Because they're like, there's this huge void. Everybody loves Dead Space, but there's no Dead Space game.
Make a game
so let's
to fill
make a
that
Dead
void.
Space
Like,
because
whoop,
we love
yeah.
it. And then next thing you know,
That's just how it all worked out. Yeah, I'm certainly not saying they're unoriginal or they ripped off everything.
Yeah.
That's not what I mean by it. It's just like unfortunate timing, guys. Like you're right between the kings here.
Yeah, it's rough. It'll be interesting to see maybe if they delay this to try to get out away from Callisto Protocol and the Dead Space remake.
Or get out. I mean, if you can get it out first.
That's not happening.
But it doesn't seem like that's possible.
Because Callisto comes out in December. And Dead Space remake was supposed to come out this year, and it's not going to make it. But my guess is Q1 of next year. So maybe you hold this till the end of the year next year, you got a shot.
If you can afford to do that.
Yeah.
If you can take it out.
Smaller studios, though, that's tough to do. So we'll see how it goes. It
Like
doesn't,
if you could hold
it doesn't
this,
look bad.
Yeah, if you could hold this till like Halloween time next year.
Yeah.
That would be.
You might have something then. Because again, it doesn't look bad. It just looks derivative, and like two other games that are probably going to be better games.
Derivative through no fault of its own.
Right.
Really.
Yeah. But anyway, and I'll remind you again because you're going to need to be reminded.
The other thing
that's
maybe
called
is
Fort Solis.
Yeah, the other thing maybe is to do some, as time goes on, do something to really emphasize why it's different from those games. Because I'm sure there's something in there that makes it unique.
The branching
storyline, and
yeah,
it's a different, it's not an industrial facility you're in. It's like, it looks like a living space. Like a couple places that look like the Citadel from Mass Effect. With the trees planted in the middle of the little round circle. So I think like if you can make the case that like, oh, it's not like blue collar guy kind of like wending his way through factory zones or a prison or whatever.
It still looked a little bit like that.
Somewhat, but like.
There's lots of steel and
you gotta lean into what the difference is.
Yeah.
You're
right. That's a smart way
now that they know that competition is out there, that's probably the angle they need to go for.
Yep, I agree with that. Next up, something we're not going to show footage of because they probably would give us a copyright strike. The Rock appeared in Jeff's live stream. And it has to
heard you like sponsored content, so we put sponsored content in your sponsored content, so you can sponsor content while you sponsor content.
It literally goes that deep.
It does.
It's like a commercial inside for a commercial inside of a big commercial.
And if all those commercials make you thirsty, there's a new energy drink. But it's oh my god!
It literally was
it's
a
hilarious.
commercial for his energy drink inside a commercial for the movie.
Yep.
Inside a commercial for the video game industry.
Yep.
It's 3 layers. And it was terrible. He was
Inception.
terrible. He was terrible. What happened to The Rock? He used to be able to go into the ring and just riff and sound brilliant. And here he is in his home gym, in his house, where he should be comfortable and in his zone, and he's stumbling over his words. He doesn't know what to talk about. It's just like this weird commercial.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was like just an impromptu thing. Like he's filming himself with his own phone.
He didn't even have like his assistant film him. He's like holding it and like trying to hold the drink. What the hell was going on there?
I mean, the kids today call that authenticity.
I know. It's him being his true self or whatever. Yeah, it's like that was so out of place. Like it was just so blatantly paid.
It's very weird.
It was weird.
And I love the whole where they tried to make it like, oh, here's The Rock. Hey, Rock, what's up? And he's like, hey, Jeff, how you doing? It's like, oh yeah, you're totally alive right now. Absolutely, this is a conversation we're having.
And it had nothing to do with video games.
But it's the same audience.
Other than him saying like, hey, drink my energy drink to stay in the game.
Here's this movie that you're probably interested in if you like video games.
Yeah,
that's about it.
That's it.
And now it's fine. It's a crossover demographic. I'm sure Jeff got paid to.
Well, had Jeff's dad hooked it up, written all over it.
For sure.
Because for those of you who don't know, Jeff's dad created IMAX. He was one of 2 or 3 people.
He was one of the original creators of IMAX.
Yeah. And so he's obviously deeply embedded. And remember, Summer Games Fest.
If you're wondering how Jeff has all these connections to make these things.
And had money from the get-go. That's where it came from. And also, don't forget, Summer Games Fest was like live inside IMAX theaters. Mm-hmm. I would really like to see what the attendance was like at one of those things.
I'd like to see what the contract for that looked like. I bet there's a lot of the same last name on it.
Probably.
That's just the nature of business.
That's
how it works. I found out a while ago that two of the people who founded Skydance Pictures and Annapurna went to my high school. They're a few years behind me, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, how did you pull that off? That's impressive. And then I found out that their dad was the third most successful, like third richest producer in Hollywood. I was like, oh, you just got a lot of money from your dad. And
funny how that works.
And made this thing that I mean, can't argue with how Skydance and Annapurna make it. I mean, it was a brother and sister, and the sister's been nominated for like 6 Best Picture Oscars because of her choices of which things to produce. So you can't say they didn't make good use of the money.
Yeah. The thing about people with money is that people who don't have money, you have your one shot.
Yeah.
To do it, and if it fails, you're right back to just going and working a 9 to 5. Rich people, they can keep trying
again and again,
over and over and over, and they can keep failing.
To rich people, it's like buying a pack of trading cards.
Right?
It's like, oh, didn't get the one I wanted.
Nothing in this pack. Throw it away. Get the next pack.
You want these cards?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Hashtag capitalism. That's how it works. So anyway, The Rock just seemed real out of place, really bad, and blatantly paid. I guess is the best way to put it. But
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like, Rock's got to eat.
Yeah.
Man eats a lot of pancakes. I don't know if you know that.
He does. He eats a lot, period. I mean, he eats, like 8,000 calories a day or something
like that.
Insane?
I mean, he's huge. You got to feed that muscle.
It's insane.
His cheat day videos are some of my favorite ones he does.
They're pretty amazing.
We can only dream.
He literally eats like what I eat in a month in a day on his cheat days. It's crazy. So anyway, I was disappointed in that. I had a lot of respect for The Rock. He's just showman. He's really good at that typically, but he just did not deliver.
I've said many times, like when I went to WWF Raw in San Jose in 2001, and when he was, it was him and Stone Cold. It was the Raw era basically, and when he came out, that is the loudest I have ever heard an audience get in my entire life. And I've been to a lot of concerts, been a lot of places, been a lot of things.
Yeah.
I have never heard any. When he came out, you heard the beginning of the theme, and you couldn't hear the you couldn't hear the speakers in the San Jose arena over the crowd, and like he just goes finally, and like again, like it was. He said 4 sentences, and it took almost 20 minutes. Yeah. Like I've never seen anything like most electrifying man in sports entertainment. Yes, he was.
He was, yeah.
Yes, he was.
And you got to remember, Matt and I were there when they debuted The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess.
Yeah. That was also pretty loud. There were people crying on the floor when they did that. I've never seen anything like that either.
Barry Max, if you smell put the rock. He was amazing. And anyway.
It doesn't matter what you think. He's great. He was great.
He was great. Yep. The best wrestler ever, I believe. And then next, they showed, I'm going to show you B-roll of this because it's the most derivative thing I've ever seen in my life. A new RTS from ex-Blizzard employees called Stormgate. Literally the most generic-looking RTS I've ever seen in my life. Just totally being like, you know what? Just saying that we used to work at Blizzard on StarCraft, that's good enough. That seems to be the angle that they're taking with that. And then, the game I was hinting at earlier that we thought was an XCOM clone, but as it turns out, it's actually something a little different, is Marvel's Midnight Suns. Mm-hmm. Are you more excited for this now, Matt, that we're learning it's a little bit more of an RPG and less turn-based strategy?
It's more interesting, yeah, although I read some of the interviews with the guys, and it certainly was what we thought it was originally. Mm-hmm. They made basically XCOM with superheroes, and then they're like, this sucks.
Oh, really?
Like, they were like, because they were like, if you have, the classic XCOM thing.
Well, you can't have permadeath, obviously.
No, but also the classic XCOM thing with like, you got 90% chance to hit. Oh, you missed. Like they're like missing. Iron Man's got a high percentage to hit, but he misses. Like this sucks. Like this doesn't feel good. Like you don't feel like you're a superhero. Like you need something that's going to be. The XCOM formula was not working with this theme, with this superhero thing. So they changed it to more of a deck building, card based thing. So you have different abilities on deck in your hand so you can't always depend on being able to do like a repulsor blast or a unibeam or whatever, but you have a pretty good idea of what you will be able to do, and then you have to kind of work with and look, I am much more of a tactical person than a strategy. Strategic is large scale, tactical is in the moment. Tactical is what you have to work with on the battlefield, basically. I'm more tactical. Like tactical people win battles, strategic people win wars. Mm-hmm. And I am a tactical person. I can win the battle, but I don't. You want me to think past that? I'm gonna have a problem because it's hard. It's also why I'm not a good chess player. Is I don't think that many moves ahead. It's also why I'm very bad at the game Spirit Island. If anyone knows what that is, but this is more my speed, because XCOM is something I can do, but it's hard. Like, it's because there's a lot of times when I save scum it a lot. I'm just like, oh, right, then that's gonna happen because you can move here, and I say, okay, I gotta back up and do that again. Takes me forever to get through an XCOM game because I'm continually doing that.
I sit there, I do that in turn-based strategy games all the time. I will sit there for way too long pondering.
And
each move.
this style is much more my speed, and it also, I think they're right when they talked in the interview about how this gets the superhero thing across better. You feel more powerful. You feel like you have a set of things to deal with, but there's still strategic decisions because you don't have access to your entire power set every turn.
Yep. Any big surprises in this trailer as far as characters?
No.
No?
Like, I know they tried to set it up as something. I mean, basically, they're showing the villains we're going to be dealing with, which is like Venom and Scarlet Witch, and it's all pretty expected, I would say. I mean, they look cool. Like, I like the weird, demonized versions of the characters that they're doing here.
It's really
like,
dark.
Fun.
And I'm all about that.
Yeah, so it's cool. I'm into it. I like that's kind of, I have the Midnight Suns Marvel Knights thing. I always thought that angle was a fun thing to do with the characters. It's interesting, some of the there's characters in this that are normally not part of that, like Iron Man and Captain America and stuff like that. This was more of a Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, sometimes Spider-Man, Daredevil, that kind of thing. But it looks cool. And now the card-based system is way more interesting to me. So that's
which Spider-Man is this in this trailer?
It's Peter Parker.
But what costume is he wearing there?
He's wearing the Marvel Midnight Suns video game costume. These are all new costumes.
So wait, all this costume is made just for the game?
Yeah, all the stuff they're wearing here is all for the game.
Ah, okay. Because I was like, I've never seen that Spidey suit before.
No, these are all at least slightly tweaked, in most cases, versions of their normal costumes. So, like, those are all new costumes as far as I'm aware.
That's a pretty sweet Spidey costume.
I mean, there's like a knight element to it there, you can see. There's some kind of chainmail things. There's a little bit of the old the web armor from Web of Spider-Man, whatever the hell number that was. But these are all new as far as I can tell.
I think the game looks great.
There's Venom.
I'm pretty excited for it. There's still not a lot of gameplay out of this, though. They're really kind of keeping it under wraps.
Hulk.
I mean, some previews came out for it, like after this trailer was dropped, but still not a lot of gameplay footage out there where you can really see what it plays like. So
this was very weird. This bit at the end here. Because what that is a reference to he's ringing the bell. What that is a reference to the fact that sound used to damage Venom.
Oh, that's right.
Originally he used the church bells to get the suit off him, and that was how he beat Venom the first time. He rang the bells and the sound dissipated the symbiote, and he was able to beat Eddie. After he ran Eddie's webs down to nothing. And then he rings them, he's like, "Oh, that's funny. That used to work." And that's a very weird cut to use for. I mean, I get it, but it's also weirdly edited. I don't know. I thought that was odd.
Yeah.
But no, I'm interested. I hope hope it makes it this year. Still, it seems
it's supposed to still.
Yeah, it said October. So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm definitely curious.
It's got a window there where it could do real well.
It could. If
it's a good game, it could sell through the
game,
roof.
or it's got the right license. It looks cool. It definitely looks cool.
Yeah.
Like that, like you said, that is a cool Spider-Man suit.
Yeah.
You can't deny that.
That's what I took away from that trailer the first time I watched it. I was like, ooh, I haven't seen Spider-Man looking like that before. So, again, it has an opportunity with so many games being delayed out of the year. It has a wide open window there to gather as many sales as it possibly can. So, it's actually working out well for some games. It's going to work out well for Saints Row. Saints Row is going to sell way more than it would have before. A lot of people are going to be checking it out.
Shiniki says costumes to sell toys. Marvel doesn't really do the toy thing very well anymore. It's. I mean, you usually get a wave of figures for each movie, but it's shocking how slow they are to cash in on merchandising opportunities with the Marvel stuff these days. Takes forever. I would be surprised if we ever saw figures for that. Maybe.
Really?
Yeah. I think Hot Toys would be more likely to make high-end 12-inch figures of that, because they have done. They did 12-inch figures for the Spider-Man and Miles Morales PlayStation games. So they do video game stuff. They did Miles with the Spider Cat in the backpack. In fact,
that's
so
cool.
I guess they might do that. That they could do a couple of those,
expensive ones.
Yeah, talking $200-$300 figures. But stuff on the show that's uncommon for
finding stuff at Walmart and Target.
Yeah,
and stuff
I think
they
might be changing, but it's weird. It's very weird.
Well, I will definitely figure that out, because
you would think that that would be the whole point.
Yeah,
right.
All my nephews, their favorite character is Spider-Man. So guaranteed, I will find out over the holiday season whether they actually made toys with that costume or not, because I will go looking for it.
I mean, that's the thing is, I think if they do make toys, it'll be 6 months later.
Yeah.
It's weird how long it takes sometimes. It's just because, like, it feels like you should be able to go into any store and just grab things that are and like generally you can't. Like also with the Marvel Legends is sort of their main 6-inch figure line, and like they don't ship enough to keep it on shelves. Like you can go in right now, and like you won't find any Doctor Strange stuff on the shelves because they're all gone.
Really?
The Hasbro doesn't ship enough stuff,
which is odd because that movie felt like it just came and went with barely a whimper.
I mean, it did fine.
Yeah, hardly, but it didn't like pop through the pop culture lexicon. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it on social media and things like that.
There was a lot of it, but it's it's in theaters for 6 weeks and that's the end of it. It was no Spider-Man, No Way Home. I mean, No Way Home was a phenomenon in a way that very few things.
Well, it was like let's go back to the theaters.
Also, people were too busy. People are too busy memeing Morbius and then tricking Sony. Sony is so dumb. Sony, it's just like that. The memes tricking Sony into putting Morbius back into 1,000 theaters and having it bomb a second time might be one of the greatest, like, boomers don't understand the internet moments in the history of
engagement is good engagement.
And now everyone's like, do it again. We were all busy that weekend. Do it again. It's so dumb.
Manipulating corporations. That's hilarious.
Did you hear about the Joker sequel?
No.
So they revealed it's been greenlit like a week ago. So the Joker sequel is a musical. And they were trying to get Lady Gaga to be Harley Quinn.
Oh, I did see that today. I actually did see something on Twitter, I think, about it today. Yeah.
Welcome to Ha Ha Land.
Which, I mean, I think she'll make a great Harley Quinn. But
she's a good pick, but
I don't want a musical.
I do want a musical Joker movie starring Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn is an idea I would be interested in if it was a different creative team, because Todd Howard is a hack with nothing to say.
Oh. Okay.
He's just going to steal Martin Scorsese's New York, New York and call that a movie. That's what this is going to be.
So no matter what they do with it, I will not watch it. Okay, moving on.
I think they should have just not told anyone that's what it was until it released, and everyone goes in. It's like, what the hell is this? All like the weirdo bros who love the first one. Right. It's like, wait, why are they singing?
Oh, yeah. That would be funny. Yeah, that might be worth it, actually. Okay, next up, Cuphead. It feels like we've been waiting for the DLC for Cuphead our entire lives. But it is finally coming out here at the end of the month, and Geoff managed to get some exclusive gameplay from a boss fight. Is it wrong for me to have an unhealthy fascination with the girl from Cuphead that always reps Cuphead?
Who?
I don't remember what her name is, but she's always the girl that like does interviews for Cuphead and she's just.
I thought you meant the girl.
No, not the character in the game, like a real person.
No, I don't remember who. I mean, I guess I would probably recognize her if I saw her. No, I don't.
Well, she's whip smart, really nice, and beautiful, and loves video games. I would guess she would probably be the dream girl for most of the people that I know. And this shows obviously. Is
she playing right now? Because that may be so.
I'm sure she's really good at it. But she's actually one of the artists of the game. Like she actually does like the drawing and the animation for the game.
So she's very good at what she does.
Right. She's like I said, she's whip smart and really talented and beautiful and loves video games. So anytime she's on stage, I'm like, oh, good to see you again. This looks awesome. I mean, it's Cuphead. It's really looking like this is going to be almost like a whole extra game.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to completely fail at it and stop playing it after an hour.
Did you not make it through Cuphead?
I got through most of Cuphead, but there was a point at which, and this all looks way harder.
It does. This boss fight looks impossible.
Yeah, this is like expert mode for sure.
It looks impossible. Like, yeah.
I love the art. I think, the old time animation stuff and kind of like the way they've like kept the look and the feel and tone but also like excised the racism.
Yeah,
it's a really good reinvention of that era of animation.
I made it like halfway through Cuphead before I had to call it quits. It just got to the point where and the funny part I would say about Cuphead is that I did enjoy it the whole time I was playing it. Like even when I was getting my butt whooped, like it was still enjoyable to play. But it just got to a point where I was like, I just don't have the time for this anymore. Like I played enough. I can talk about it on GameFace. Yeah. I can keep banging my head against the wall trying to make it past this level, or I can move on and play something else. And there's
parts where it's like, when it's up time for a new boss, you're just like, God, do I want to do that to myself right now? Like, there's a level of concentration you need that is just like, you got to be ready.
I mean, look at this. It's insane. Like, it's just you're memorizing, basically, patterns.
Yeah, it's very old school.
Yeah. But the art, everything about it's incredible. And once you do get into the zone, this game feels real good.
Yeah, I'd rather just watch someone who's really good at it play.
Yeah, me too. For me, it's the perfect Let's Play game. But I will give this a spin, and we'll be talking about this before the end of the month here on GameFace, because it is coming soon. Next up, a game that caught our attention. Was it at the Game Awards last year? Nightingale?
Yeah, I think it was the Game Awards, yeah.
The trailer that we saw for that at the Game Awards was very mysterious, and it looks... Honestly, the game looked nothing like what it really does. This is the gameplay trailer for Nightingale. And I remember we watched that trailer initially, we were like, what the hell kind of game is it? This trailer makes it obvious what it is.
They said it was a survival game. We were kind of disappointed.
Yeah, we're like, how could it be? It doesn't look like a survival game. Well, here you are.
Well, I mean, I'm sure
chopping down trees.
I believed him. I just thought it was a shame that they used this art style and design on a survival game.
Yeah, it's very out of the ordinary. And they have provided now finally a pretty good synopsis of what the game is about. It's a first-person PvE open-world survival crafting game played solo or cooperatively with friends. Build, craft, fight, and explore as you venture through mystical portals into a variety of amazing and fantastical realms. You are stranded beyond your world, cut off by the collapse of the arcane portal network. Sounds like your internet's down. The catastrophe has left you fighting to survive in a labyrinth of beautiful and dangerous fey realms. Your goal is to become a skilled realm walker and navigate the web, I guess it is like the internet, of trans-dimensional portals. Only then can you discover your way to the magical city of Nightingale, the last known bastion of humanity. I think it sounds very interesting, but it's a survival game, and I hate survival games. As soon as I saw them chopping down the trees, I was like, no, I don't want to chop down trees. That was kind of like the deal breaker for me. Mm-hmm. Are you more or less interested in this now that we've gotten like a really good look at what it actually is?
Not particularly interested. It's I mean, maybe like the fact that it's more PvE like helps, but like if I played this, it would purely be because I think it looks cool, like artistically, to the point that I want to try and like it. But I don't know, like very rarely do these survival games have anything of interest to me once I sort of like get past the initial stages.
Well, once I set up my homestead, it turns into the grind.
Yeah, and they start expecting me to like, oh, you spend an hour building a barn. I'm like,
no, no, that's not going to happen. That happens to me too with these games. I've never really been a big survival guy. I've tried them all too. I've tried so many of them. And a big problem I think with a lot of these games is the onboarding is terrible. Like Ark, Survival Evolved, and I know that they've changed it over time, but the onboarding for that game was ridiculous. And a lot of them are that way. Like, how long I end up sticking with these games depends on how the first, 10 or 15 minutes of them go, typically.
Yeah, like, Valheim was maybe the closest I got.
Yeah.
And even that didn't last tremendously long.
And that got awkward for me, too, because the building was kind of janky, and, I couldn't really... I'd try to build stuff that I wanted to build, and it would end up, lopsided. And I'd be like, you know what? That's good enough. And I'd end up dealing with this, lopsided cabin for the first, 5 hours I played the game. They're just not... For me, I totally appreciate that these are games that typically have a lot of longevity, and for people who like to construct stuff and build their own worlds, like with Minecraft and things like that, there's definitely an allure for them. But I prefer stuff like this to be an extra element, kind of like how it was in Fallout 4. You don't necessarily have to do it all that much if you don't want to. Mm-hmm. Games where it's the crux of what you do, that's where it turns me off typically.
Yeah. It's just not interesting to me.
Yep.
It's more interesting when you do that's one of the things that keeps me calm on that with Starfield is at least the building in Starfield, it looks like you can do more of a top-down visual look, top-down perspective when you're doing that. For me, it's really the building from a first-person perspective I find really irritating.
Me too, because I'm not a Minecraft guy.
Yeah.
All the kids are great at that. Not me. I'm not.
And it's one thing to do the Fortnite thing where you're sort of building stuff and building
while you're playing.
But with something like this, I'm trying to make it look nice. I'm trying to, and so often they don't give you the tools to really do that.
Or you can't make it I just want it to be square.
Right.
Square angles, so things aren't kicked on an angle and your roof isn't half sliding off. A lot of these games just don't make it easy enough.
Yeah, just give me something like The Sims.
Let
me build it that way.
Just snap it together. I'm cool. At least give me the option. I know other people may not want that, but at least provide the option for people like me. And
let me pull back and sort of see the bigger picture and sort of put things together that way would be way more preferable.
Agreed.
Make it more like an RTS, basically, is what I'm looking at.
Yep, agreed. Next up, Saints Row. They had a trailer for the character creation tool, which is live now. So you can go and create your character now for the new Saints Row reboot. More games should do that.
Yeah.
Why not?
Especially if you have a character creator that robust.
Yeah. Imagine if Starfield had released its character creation tool. Or even if it just said, look, we
Maybe
know
that's what we'll get on 11-11.
That's what I was hinting at. Imagine if they said, like, we know we missed 11-11, but as a make good, you'll be able to start building your character and maybe even let you build a ship or something on 11-11.
Knowing Bethesda, like, they'd accidentally include the whole game and people would hack it out in like an hour.
People would data mine it and just have the whole freaking thing. Like, you're right. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But anyway, you can go do that now if you want to. You can create your character for Saints Row. Next was...
And there are people who spend hours and hours making their characters in some of those, which is like, so it's like, cool, like you can get that out of the way and be ready to play when the game comes out.
As soon as it starts.
Like,
why not?
It's polite.
It is,
really, to do that for the players.
It's respecting the player's time, man.
It is.
Next up, a game that I was actually disappointed in, Layers of Fears. The new game from Bloober Team. We were all hoping that we would see a new Silent Hill being created by Bloober Team, and instead, not only do we not get a new game from Bloober Team, we get a mashup of the first two Layers of Fear in a single game. Now, albeit it's being built in Unreal Engine 5, and it looks amazing graphically, and the first two Layers of Fear were pretty good, so I can kind of understand why they're doing it. It was just disappointing to me because I wanted something new.
Well, they're supposedly working on Silent Hill, so they got to fill the time with something. You know, they can't. No, they don't have time to make a whole new game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe that's what. Maybe because they're working on Silent Hill, they don't have time to create a brand new game from scratch. I
do think the first two Layers of Fear games do deserve presentation on this level. Like
they do.
I thought the first one was good, but it was a little held back.
That was
by
the
tech.
Problem. Yeah, for sure.
And like you make that look like this, I think that's great.
Yeah. And it will obviously become the definitive edition of both of these games. And so there's value in doing that. And I feel like a lot of people haven't even played the Layers of Fear game because they've been indie games, kind of underground indie horror games.
Although they're always there in almost every sale. So I'm sure people try them out.
Have they been included in like free, like for Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus games yet?
I don't remember. I think they've been in Humble Bundles.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if they were any of that.
But I feel like a lot of people still haven't been exposed to these games. So it might do pretty well for Bloober Team. It looks gorgeous, that's for sure. Graphically, it looks amazing. I just would have rather seen the new Silent Hill that it's reportedly, allegedly, leakedly, is that a new word? Leakedly? Working on. But yeah, that was a little disappointing.
It's also a good way to get familiar with the Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Maybe that's part of it, is it's like, okay, let's learn how to work on this engine so when we really start going hardcore on Silent Hill, we know what we're getting ourselves into. So that's Layers of Fears. And then, Matt, your favorite game and your most anticipated game for 2022, Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
Matt, this game... So you had mentioned, I think 2 weeks ago on GameFace, that the last gameplay demo really disgusted you. And I had only scrubbed through it. I hadn't watched the whole thing. So after you said that, I went back and I watched it from the beginning and tried to watch it the whole way through. And holy cow. Oh my gosh. The combat in this game looks so terrible.
I don't understand what happened.
Dude, Nightwing looks so terrible. His combat is just so disconnected and slow.
There's no flow to it.
There's no sense of
weightless.
momentum.
Yeah,
it's like we got this stuff motion captured and that's good enough.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like.
Which is so weird from your base. You've got the Arkham games to work from.
You can tell it's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, they're not succeeding.
Oh, it's so blatantly not the Batman Arkham games. It is. Oh man. What do you think? Do you think this game's gonna sell?
Probably. I mean, it's Batman. But
is it though? It's not. I mean, that's its whole hook. Is it doesn't have Batman?
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll do fine. But you're gonna run into a problem of, no Batman is a problem.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that are not really recognized. I mean, I think having Batgirl is gonna help, but at the same time, their take on the Red Hood is very weird. Where he's teleporting around and stuff like that. Okay, that's odd, but all right. I don't think it looks very good, art design wise.
It looks okay.
I don't like the designs of the characters really. Nightwing in particular is too thick. Dick Grayson is not that.
THICC.
Yeah, Dick Grayson is not that big. Dick Grayson has a dynamite ass, but he does not have bulk like that. He doesn't look like that's Batman. He's Batman sized in this, and he should be Dick Grayson sized.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't have a lot of I don't know. They might be hiding it so far. They haven't shown it yet, but like I feel like it doesn't capture kind of the Bat family vibe. Like if you're gonna take Batman out of it and put these characters in as sort of your like, you better be really leaning into the idea that these are people who grew up together, that they're kind of a surrogate family for one another. And I just don't see any of that in this.
Right now, this game is tracking to be my most disappointing game of 2022. I hope I'm wrong. I'm keeping an open mind with it, but man...
I don't know if I can be disappointed by this game because I am out of expectations.
Your expectations are low now.
Like,
yeah.
They were always kind of low, but like... Man, like I don't understand how we wait all these years and for more Batman stuff and we get this and Suicide Squad instead.
Wampler says looks very 2018. That's a great way to describe it.
Does.
Yeah.
Like if this had come out 2018, 2017, a few years after Gotham Knight or Arkham Knight, sure.
Yeah. And my guess is it probably was in development around that
would
time
even
too.
fit because it got Arkham Knight to Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
Like that's okay.
Yeah.
I said when Arkham Knight ended, I'm like, okay, you just changed the name to Gotham now.
Right.
Instead of Arkham.
And they did.
But oh.
Yeah. I have set my expectations to disappoint for this game, but we'll see. Hopefully I'm wrong. And then the big finisher was The Last of Us remake. And now they're calling it The Last of Us Part 1.
Right.
To designate it as the remake. Which, and we had a discussion about this off camera, but I still really struggle to understand why this is needed. They did a quote unquote remaster of it, which they didn't do a ton of work on the remaster.
The remaster was very much just better textures and turn the settings up a little bit.
Yeah,
which was good. I mean, it was definitely an improvement.
Yeah.
I would argue that this is needed because it brings it in line with the gameplay and AI of 2. And that's such a huge improvement that having gone back and played the first one again after I finished 2, the difference between those two games is night and day.
Huge, yeah.
Like the first game's combat is not very good.
It's not.
And as Druckmann said, they redid the AI and the combat in this up from the ground. Like it's completely new. They've completely revamped all of that. It is they've built it from the ground up visually and gameplay wise. They went back to the original mocap files and use completely new rigs and the new engine to redo the performances. So the facial expressions are more accurate to what the actors actually did in the original performances. I'm not saying they didn't do any work on it. It's remarkable. Like it brings it in line with 2, which is still one of the best looking games on PlayStation. Mm-hmm. So the fact that it makes those two games sort of a more functional pairing together, I think that's good. I don't know if it should be $70.
Yeah.
But because it's I know it's a remake. That's what they worked hard on it. But I don't know. Like it feels like
it's a cash grab.
A little bit.
Because right now PlayStation doesn't have a whole lot, and
also this was to keep a lot of people at Naughty Dog employed.
Yeah.
Between projects.
Right.
So and look, if we end up with a better version of this game, great. Yeah. I don't have a problem with any of that.
I'd rather Naughty Dog work on a new game. But
well, they couldn't. It was this or fire those people. There is no new game that doesn't exist because this was made.
Yeah,
that's not a thing. So this is probably the best possible example of when to slot a remake in.
And Neil Druckmann, who was on stage, it's great to show up for a gaming event. He doesn't do that very often. Also talked about the standalone multi. The other thing too is that all this stuff had leaked a long time ago. Not only that, this actual trailer that we're seeing right now leaked the morning of the event.
He did complain on stage a little bit, which I get it.
And I get it too. But all this stuff had leaked way before that. I don't know if Neil is just out of touch with the leak scene or whatever, but we knew about all this stuff. So we knew about this. We knew about this remake. We also knew about the standalone multiplayer, The Last of Us, which he announced on stage has turned into this thing. It's going to be a huge game. It's going to have its story. He says it's as big as any single-player game Naughty Dog has ever made.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. It said there's a whole new cast of characters that haven't been in the other two games. It's set in the U.S., I believe in New York City, based upon the screenshot that they released. They said that we'll see that for the first time in 2023.
That's the game I would be more irritated. You could have been making something
else. Oh, right. Yeah, because you hate multiplayer games. And then he talked about the Last of Us HBO show, which sounds like it's going to be really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really does.
He got to direct an episode.
He did, yeah, which is cool. Which I think he's like the U.S. version of Kojima. I really feel like he has aspirations to do much more than just make
if that were to blossom for him, I can see him leaving video games behind
altogether
easily.
Yep.
Also, I did like that they said, Troy and Ashley got roles in the show.
Yeah.
Like, not as Ellie and Joel, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, they apparently have prominent speaking roles in at least one episode, which is cool. Like, that was apparently one of Naughty Dog's demands.
Yeah.
It was like, you got to treat these two right because they got us here in the first place. So I like that. I like that respect.
I like Naughty Dog. I like the way they do business. I like the way they run their ship.
I wish they were a little crunch lighter.
Yeah, but, I wish they didn't crunch as much, and I wish that they had more employees so they could make games faster. But otherwise, they're one of my favorite.
I don't know how much faster you can make games of that detail and quality level, really.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a limit to how much you can just throw people at something.
Because I think that there's only so many people who are talented enough to do it.
There's a level of
person.
So
you could have 5 people sitting there. If they can't do the job.
Yeah, if only one person's good enough to make Naughty Dog quality, that one person's still going over everybody else's work, and it's not going to go any faster.
Yeah. But anyway, so he finished the show with the flourish with all the Naughty Dog stuff, probably appropriately so, even though, again, all that stuff had already leaked out. Matt, what letter grade would you give Geoff's Summer Game Fest? And I have trained myself now to say Summer Game Fest instead of Summer Games Fest. Yeah. I finally got over the hump.
I don't know. I'm probably in like a C- range.
Yeah. It feels like, especially after watching the Xbox and Bethesda press showcase, it feels like he could have got a lot more.
I don't think that
third-party stuff because
I think
Xbox had none really.
Well, because I think a lot of stuff wasn't ready to be shown. I don't think you could go to Ubisoft and say, "Hey, you want to show some stuff?" And I think because they weren't working on anything.
Yeah, but I mean, he could have got like new trailers or maybe even a little bit of gameplay from like Suicide Squad or something.
But those trailers take months to make.
Yeah, but all these games that were supposed to come out now or in the next few months, like they're very close to being finished. Like I feel like they could have squeezed something out of some of those, but
if they could have, Geoff would have. I'm confident enough in Geoff Keighley to know that if that was possible, he would have made it.
You're probably right. So you,
I'm
what
sure
was your
because
grade again?
Like a C-. I'm sure that in terms of like stuff like that, I'm sure that as soon as the ESA said we're not doing E3, a lot of those companies were like, well, then we're not going to spend our time and resources and people on building any demos for E3. So like, there's nothing. They literally have nothing to give Geoff at this point.
Now
they've shifted to whatever their marketing plans are for the fall.
Yeah. So I showed you that sheet with all the stuff that was actually in it. We cut a lot out that we did not discuss, but all of it was indie stuff. And that is, we're going to get to the indie stuff from Summer Game Fest /E3 here in a little bit. We're going to share some of our favorite indie games that we've seen over the last week and a half. But one overarching theme to me in this entire week and a half has just been, it's just been a deluge of indie stuff. And not the best indie stuff. And I'll discuss that a little bit more when we talk about it.
It seems like it was much more just what was available.
Yeah. Like more than half of Geoff's show was indie. About half of the Xbox Bethesda thing was indie. It's just
I think that's just what it's going to be. I mean, there's fewer AAA games now.
Yeah, it's just the environment that we're in. And
again, a lot of those AAA games got pushed or are still in long-term development. Microsoft has tons of AAA stuff in the pipeline, but just tons of it's not ready.
Yeah. Like I would argue you curate that stuff a little better and show like the really cool indie stuff because
somewhat I think you're
just
stuck
getting lost. There are good indie games.
Yeah, I think you're just stuck with something like Microsoft. I think you're stuck with like we were talking about during the thing. Like there's clearly contracts in place because of the Game Pass deals that you got to show them.
That's an exception with the Xbox stuff for sure.
With
I think with Geoff, he was just like, I need the show to be 2 hours because
for whatever reason
because sponsorship and commercials and I need to run this stuff.
I think you had in terms of what you're talking about, you had a better example of that with the Day of the Devs, which was immediately after Summer Game Fest, which was hosted by Tim Schafer. That felt like a much more curated lineup.
Yeah. Stuff that you actually want to showcase.
Yeah. I mean, also like leave it to Tim Schafer and Double Fine to dig out the gems, right?
Absolutely.
In the indie
because
world.
they make the gems. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's Summer Games Fest. You gave it a C-.
Yeah.
I'll give it a C+. After I watched it, I was really disappointed because
I would have given it a higher grade immediately after I watched it, but now just when you were asking like what did you think, I was like I don't think anything. I can't remember anything about what happened. Like
the problem was it was just too long, and so after I watched it and finished it, I was like, oh my god! I felt like I was just like dragging my ass across the finish line to not stop watching it. And now once I put everything on paper and again, half of it was mostly indie stuff and forgettable indie stuff. But still, he had a pretty solid lineup, all things considered, for what's going on this year. So
It's kind of like if someone just blasted you with a super soaker and just kept doing it, and you just had to stand there, and at the end they're like, well, what was memorable about that? I'm like, I don't know. I guess when you started blasting me with the water and when it stopped.
That's a great analogy.
Like that's about all I got there.
Okay, that's fair enough. So there you go. That's Summer Game Fest 2022. I'm sure we'll be doing it. Well, we'll see what we're doing next year. Who knows how that's all going to shake out ultimately with Geoff and the ESA and Summer Games Fest and E3. I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the coming months as things start to take shape and we start to kind of figure out how that's all going to work out, how it's going to play out. All right, next up, the game that I was just talking up and telling Matt he should have played, and also has a very forgettable name, The Quarry. The Quarry is the spiritual successor to Until Dawn. Now, this studio, Supermassive Games, it didn't create Until Dawn and then wait like 6 years to create The Quarry. In between, it had the anthology that it's been working on, which has been a series of shorter, and I would argue, pretty forgettable horror adventure games. And the hook with their games is that
that's the Dark
Pictures anthology.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which was originally pitched as Silent Hill.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's a good thing it wasn't Silent Hill because they have not been exceptional. And I would argue that Until Dawn is better than the Dark Pictures anthology so far. And this is the studio has pegged this as the spiritual successor to Until Dawn. So it is a choose your own horror adventure where, and for whatever reason, both games, Until Dawn and this one, follows a group of teenagers in what most would say is probably a cheap knockoff of a slasher, an 80s slasher flick. And this one
seem to be their thing.
It is their thing. And this one is even more gratuitously so. This one is the cheap knockoff of Friday the 13th. It is about a group of teenage camp counselors who are counselors at this rural camp for kids. And the camp is over. It's the end of summer. All the kids are gone. And it's just them like packing all their stuff up.
Camp Diamond Lagoon.
Right. Well, it's camp. It's a quarry.
Camp Quarry.
Yeah.
Right.
It takes place like on a quarry. So these teens are getting ready to leave. One of the guys gets dumped by the girl he's been hooking up with throughout the entire summer. He's bummed, and so he doesn't want it to end. So he goes and steals a part off of the engine of the van that's supposed to take them all out of there, and they can't leave. So basically, the guy who is the owner of the camp, who is David Arquette, I would add, and there is a little bit of a Scream aesthetic to this. Like it's tongue-in-cheek a little bit. There's like some funny moments, some levity in it. It's not just all dark like horror slasher stuff. And he obviously was a part of the Scream franchise. So he is the owner of the camp, and he discovers that the van won't run, and he basically just tells them, he's like, do not stay outside tonight. You stay in the lodge. I'm going to go get someone to fix the van. I will be back in the morning. And so what it ultimately becomes...
Literally famous last words.
Right. What it ultimately becomes is you and this group of teenagers need to survive the night. That is your goal, because he will be back in the morning with the tools to fix the van, and you'll be able to get out of there. And, of course, instead of listening to him and staying inside, you decide to have one last party. And you set up a bonfire, and you sit around the bonfire and drink, and you completely ignore the warnings that he has given you to stay inside and not go outside for the entire night.
So it's a slasher movie.
It is. It totally is. And it's set like, it might as well be Camp Crystal Lake, like Friday the 13th. And so that sets everything in motion. And for the most part, I would say that the story does an amazing job of not really using the horror film tropes of the, like, I'm running from the killer and I stumble and I fall down. Like, all those stupid things that are in a lot of those movies are really not in this. However, the whole thing is kind of set in motion by a contrivance. So in the early part of the game, the opening of the game, the guy who's all bummed out that the girl is dumping him is talking to one of the other female counselors. And he asks her, he says, so if you were to disable a vehicle, how would you go about doing it? And she says, well, you could cut the fuel line, or you could steal this part off the rotor. And then he's in front of her, does that. And it's one of the first choices you have to make. Do you choose to cut the fuel line, or do you choose to take the part off the rotor? I chose take the part off the rotor because I figured all hell was going to break loose.
That's repairable.
And it would be much easier to just put the part back on instead of trying to fix the fuel line. So anyway, he does that. He takes the part for me. I chose that. And then the girl, when the van won't start, never connects the dots. And it's like, I just told this guy how to disable the van, and now the van won't run. So it does start off with kind of a corny, but after that, it's brilliant.
So don't judge it by that first choice.
Right. Get through that. You'll shake your head and be like, oh my God, this is so stupid. Nothing like that happens after that. Keep going. Because, in my opinion, this game becomes amazing. Amazing, Matt. This is, as of right now, far and away my most pleasant surprise of 2022. It's not even close. The pacing in this game is incredible. Incredible. I honestly, looking back at the last 10 years of watching all the biggest horror movies that have come out, that could not keep a plot coherent for 90 minutes. And this game does it for 10 hours. It just goes from one scenario to another that are completely believable, not contrived. It jumps around. You play, I think there's 9 total counselors in the game, or 9 total characters. It constantly jumps around, and you play the game from all the different perspectives of all the different counselors, which keeps things different. It keeps you on your toes. It helps you see the plot and the story from a bunch of different angles. So, essentially how it plays out is that there's a legend about this camp, about this old woman who was, basically drowned in the quarry, and she haunts the woods. So it's kind of like Friday the 13th crossed with, Blair Witch, as far as the plot is concerned. You have the camp setting from Friday the 13th, but you have kind of the creepy old woman witch out in the woods. That's supposed to be the legend that it's all based on. Where do I even begin? The one thing I really like about this, other than the pacing, which is absolutely great, is that they dedicate time to every character, and not just the horror elements of the game. They develop each character, and they develop all the relationships between all the characters in the game. So it's almost like they did permutations and combinations of all the potential characters. And you end up learning how each character relates to all the other characters in the game by the way that they wrote the script and how they structured the plot of the game. So what ends up happening is that you end up getting gut punches that land in this game because you care about every character. You care about the relationships in between all the characters in the game. So when things happen or go bad or go good, it makes sense and is something that you can understand, but 2, it actually has an emotional impact. So you have a main antagonist, which is clear, and that's all rooted in what I was talking about, the woman who died in the quarry and is now haunting people in the woods. It's very clear that whatever that is, or she is, or it is the main antagonist in the game. But you also get mixed up with these local yokels, these guys who live out in the woods, and they appear the first time you see them, they're using the scope on their gun to kind of spy on the teens, and you think that they may be the people who are actually doing all the bad things in the game. But then there are other hints that they're actually trying to help the teenagers survive at some points. But then there's other little subtle scenes where it looks like, no, wait a minute, they actually could still be the killers. They play on this throughout the whole game. The whole game, literally. You are guessing whether these local yokel guys are good or bad people. And that's a big X factor that kind of helps keep the pros going. This is the point here I was talking about where you make the decision.
Chosen.
Yeah. So have you seen what I've been talking about with the graphics yet, Matt?
I mean, it doesn't look amazing to me, right?
Really?
No. Looks fine, but it looks like a kind of what I'd expect as an evolution of Until Dawn, because Until Dawn didn't look bad.
Yeah, but this destroys it. If you go back now and look at Until Dawn and compare it to this game, visually, it's night and day. It literally, this game mops the floor with Until Dawn graphically. And there's some scenes later on, there's a scene where you're in the water there's 2 characters in the water. I've never seen, it literally looks photorealistic. There are times when you're playing this game where you do a double take. You're like, wait a minute, is that is this just some weird filter that they put over live action footage? Or is that actually characters built out of polygons and shaders and all that kind of stuff? Maybe this B-roll right now isn't selling it, but I'm telling you, Matt, there are some moments in this game that are some of the best looking graphics I've ever seen in a video game. As far as looking realistic. But that also brings in the whole Uncanny Valley thing. Like, one thing that they haven't nailed 100% in this game is the way some mouths move. So some of the stuff looks so real that you see, like, one passage of the script delivered with a mouth that doesn't move exactly how you think it should be, and it throws you off. There's some glitchy hair in the game. Anything that's, like, a little bit off tosses you out of the immersion in this game. Like, there's LOD issues. Like, you don't actually walk or run that much in this game, but you can still see, like, shrubs, like, drawing in, like, 40 feet away. It really pulls you out because the rest of the game really does look...
Yeah, that hair is not tops there.
But look at how the lighting works on the hair. The one thing I would say, look at the lighting on the face of the characters there. Mm-hmm. Like, it gets to a point where it is literally hard to tell the difference between, like, if this is, like, live-action footage. And again... I get that this footage isn't selling it that well, but look at the lighting on that face.
Sort of, like, here's the thing, though.
Look at the gleams on the eyes.
Yeah, here's the thing, though, like, I don't have a problem telling the difference between this and, like, a film footage thing, because in a film you'd light the fucking actors.
Right,
like, I think that looks awful. Like, I can't see their goddamn faces. Like, why are they doing that way?
I think, well, it's a horror.
Yeah, but you can still light someone's face so you can see their face move. Like, half their face is in shadow.
I mean, the whole game isn't like
David
this,
Fincher?
obviously. It's just this one scene. But
yeah, but it's just, I think that's annoying. Like, I can't. I mean, part of this might just be like running it through this low quality TV, but like,
yeah.
No, I mean, Until Dawn had some of that too. It's like that's weird lighting to like. I would not light a scene that way. Like, I don't actually think that's very good. I mean, it's good tech, but I don't think it's good cinematography.
Artistically, yeah.
Like that. Why is this? If I'm supposed to be looking at this character's impressive facial animations, why are they not lighting her face?
Yeah,
it's weird. It's a weird. I mean, and the Dark Journeys games do that too. Like, there's a lot of like. It's like, just because it's dark doesn't mean you have to like not be able to see anything. Like, these guys must be big David Fincher fans. Because Fincher does that too, where it's just like, I can't see anyone's eyes, dude. Like, that's where you see.
Well, there are plenty of scenes in this game that are in broad daylight.
Sure, it's just like and she's in a spotlight for some reason.
Yeah, the light coming through the trees or whatever.
Now she's not. Okay, it's like, I have noticed that the lighting is very different from shot to shot as they change angles.
We gotta realize I'm cutting B-roll together here.
No, I mean in the shot where like where they're talking on the stairs, when it would cut to one angle, the light on the girl on the stairs is one way, and when it cuts to the other angle, the light on her face is a completely different way, so you can see that side of her face, but the lighting is completely different from one shot to the other, which is sloppy lighting.
Yeah, I think the game looks amazing. One of the best looking games I've ever seen.
I think the tech's impressive. I don't think they're using it very well, from what I've seen here.
But dude, there are some scenes in this, like, literally where it is like photorealistic, and it's a creepy.
Clearly, their facial mocap rigs are top of the line.
It's incredible. Like, even despite the fact that sometimes the mouths are a little off, like otherwise, like the eyes, the way the eyes dart, the way the eyes have a gleam in the corners, like. It's amazing. Like, there are some moments in this game where I had to, like, do a double take and be like, holy crap, man. Are they, like, literally just laying, like, a weird video game filter over stuff that they shot? Like, it looks that close to realism. But there is Uncanny Valley stuff here, and I don't know how you ever get over that, honestly. There's a couple scenes where it's creepy because it looks so real, but the eyes, they're still dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can still tell that it's this computer-generated thing, but your brain is like, but it's not. It's a real but there's something in the back of your mind that's telling you, no, this is fake. This is fake. I don't know how to explain it.
I mean, that's literally the Uncanny Valley. It's like, we're wired to see faces. Like, that is awful, that animation of that golf cart. Like, why is it jittering forward like that? It's so weird.
I don't know. That could just be the way I capture it, because I have to capture footage at 30 frames per second for the TriCaster.
Yeah, but like
so if it runs at 60, and sometimes it gets a little jittery whenever it renders.
I don't know. Like, I'm impressed by that shot. Just like the environments are very nice. Yep. I don't know. I'm coming off of the new patched Horizon. Like, there's a very different vibe to that. But yeah, I mean, and also like it seems to vary by actor. Like, that guy's face is seems like it's translating very well, where like the blonde girl in the Jeep, her mouth didn't seem to.
She's the problem. Her mouth is the problem.
The engine doesn't seem to know quite.
It's funny that you picked up on that. She is a character whose mouth does not operate.
And that is because I'm sure the actress's mouth is doing very similar moves. Or what's happening is like basically that this engine or the rigs maybe cannot like simulate how the rest of her facial muscles would work in conjunction with how her mouth gets that wide.
It's possible.
That's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, especially in real time, like that's borderline impossible right now. It'll get there. I think by the end of this generation, you're going to see some facial animation. It's going to make you go like, what the?
I mean, this game is damn close, man. Like, she is the one eyesore as far as the rigging for the faces. She is. When I mentioned that, she was the character I was talking about.
I think a little more refinement. Like, I'd imagine their next big game of this type, because it seems like they're going to keep doing the anthology games, but then like maybe they'll do a big thing like this. You know, you do the anthology games to pay for your big slasher movie games, and I would imagine they'll get there. Sort of like with the Greedfall guys.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, you know, they're gonna get to that Bethesda, that BioWare quality eventually, and like seems like these guys will get to like some kind of, you know, like I don't know who you want to call the best in the mocap business.
David
right
Arquette.
Now. Oh yeah, I can see that.
That's pretty good.
Well, he looks like David Arquette.
So getting to how the game plays, I use the word play very loosely.
Yeah, I mean, it's Until Dawn. It's QTEs
is.
and choice things.
Yep, and there is some times where you do control characters in, like, you know, where you have control of the camera and the character at the same time. But most of the time when you're actually playing the game, it is from a fixed camera perspective. So you have those moments where the camera cuts to a new angle and you're holding the stick in one direction, and then all of a sudden the camera cuts and your character starts walking the other direction. Like, sometimes I felt like I was playing a game from like 1998 when I was playing this game. It's just like the old survival horror problems where, like, the controller, you have to end up like moving the direction you're holding the analog stick to keep walking in the same direction when the camera cuts. But as you said, gameplay is very light. There's basically single stick move QTEs, or you mash the A button, and that's it. You either hit up, down, left, or right on the stick, or you mash the A. Those are the only quick time events in the entire game. You have the same time window from the beginning of the game to the end. It's very generous. Like, the only time I missed QTEs was when I would, like, scratch my face or pick up my phone, because they can pop up at any time for, like, dumb things. Like you saw earlier in the B-roll, like, he tossed him a set of keys, and he had to hold up on the analog stick to catch the keys. It's like,
Until Dawn was like that.
It's like, why? Why is that even?
Well, because they want you to pay attention,
right? But it's like, you spend long periods of time watching this, and then out of nowhere, something will pop up. Another part of the game is collecting tarot cards. And what will happen is, the tarot card will just be in the foreground or the background of a shot. It'll have like an aura around it, and you have to hit A or X, depending on what controller you're playing, to pick up the tarot card. And then there are these little vignettes where you go and talk to this old woman tarot card reader where you can get like bonuses or whatever. But like, if you put the controller down, or you scratch your face, or you pick up your drink to take a sip, like, you can miss stuff in this game. And that's the only way that I did miss any of the QTEs, because they're really easy. Now, there are some sections of the game where they provide like a risk reward. Like, there's some scenes where you need to get somewhere really quick to try to save somebody or try to help somebody, and they will give you the option of trying to take a shortcut. And if you do that, then the quick time events are a little more challenging. Not that much more, but a little bit more. You'll have more inputs you have to put in. You'll have maybe a little bit less of a window to put the inputs in beforehand. So there's a little bit of a risk reward stuff, but for the most, there it is again. Catch the keys, hit up. Why?
What if you drop the keys?
Nothing. I did drop the keys once, and nothing happened. Like, nothing happened at all. So there is a little. They do kind of mix up the risk reward a little bit with some of the more like the chase scenes, I guess, to try to make them a little bit more intense. But for the most part, you really, as long as you're holding the controller and you're paying attention, you are in no danger of messing up any of the QTEs in this game. Obviously, another big part.
If he's got room in his Jeep, why doesn't he take some of the...
Right.
Like, you could fit all of them in there.
Right. Yeah. Yep. The whole beginning of the game...
Like, it wouldn't be comfortable, but you could do it.
Yeah. Well, if you... Like, they do have all their stuff. They've been living there all summer, so they all have, like, 5 bags or whatever.
All right, we'll still take them
back. Still humanly...
And come back and get your butt...
Yeah.
Like, if you really think it's dangerous enough to not tell them not to go outside...
Right. Like I said, the beginning of the game, you're like, what the F is going on? And then all that stuff goes away. And everything else makes sense from then on out.
I expect more from someone who's been through 3 Scream movies, David Arquette.
Yeah,
you know better.
It's funny.
Seth Green taught you better.
Yeah. And then the only other gameplay, there is like gunplay in this game. Like, there's
Seth Green.
It's like it's really awkward and weird, and like when it does pop up, you have the option of shooting the gun or not, and I never shot it because there's a flashlight on it. I could never find anyone to shoot. And as it turns out, I think you were supposed to not fire the shotgun. And that leads me into the big crux of this game, which is choice. And that's really what these games are about. Making decisions either on the fly or pondering them, and then having to deal with the repercussions of those decisions on down the line later. And it's a mixed bag. Decisions can be tough. Like, sometimes you have as much time as you want to decide. Like, when I decided to cut the fuel line or take the part out of the engine, I had as much time as I wanted to. But other times, you are under the gun, and you have to make a decision in the heat of the moment. And it'll get your heart pumping, because it's really hard to figure out what the right answer is. For example, there's one scene where the character is trying to use a zip line to zip all the way across a lake and get away from the antagonist. And she gets to the zip line, and the handle for the zip line is actually like 10 feet down the zip line. And so she has to crank this crank to get the handle of the zip line up to where she can grab it and then slide across the zip line across the lake. And so the game starts asking you, do you want to crank quickly? Because the antagonist is coming after you. It doesn't know where you are. So you're like, no, I want to crank it slow so it doesn't make any noise, and I can get the crank up here and then go across. Well, what happens is you crank it slow, and it makes a lot of noise, and it asks you again, do you want to crank fast now, or do you want to crank slow? And I was like, no, I think it's still making less noise. I'm going to crank slow. And so I kept cranking slow, and then the antagonist appears behind you, and it's running at you, and just at the last second, you manage to get the handle to the top, and you zip line down across. Like, it's a guess whether you should crank fast or crank slow. It's all luck. And to me, most of the big decisions in this game, they are luck. It's very difficult to figure out what the game wants you to do. What is the right choice in those situations? It just feels random. But at the same time,
ideally there wouldn't be a right choice.
And that's what I was going to get at. The thing is like, you want to fail some of these things because that throws the story into chaos. Like, I had managed to keep all of them alive. And like 7 hours into the game, I still had all of them alive. And then the game just started throwing all these crazy decisions at me. And it just all started going to hell. Like, in a handbasket very quickly. And it made it interesting and fun. What I had realized is, like, I had been striving to keep all these people alive. And the game was actually more fun and interesting when they were dying. And so I feel like it may be by design that they're giving you these choices where it's impossible to figure out what the right choice is, because it's probably better for you as the player if you do fail some of them. And some people die or get put in these dire consequences that ratchet up the intensity in the action of the game. These vignettes, no idea why they're in the game. So bizarre. Look, did you see that?
Yeah, the animated thing.
Yeah, where they like teach you like about some of the stuff in the game. Like, here, here's how you deal with evidence in the game. So out of place. It's like, why are you showing me this goofy cartoon in the middle of a horror game?
Because it's a lot faster to do that than to make something that looks like the tech in the main game. Like, this is probably much quicker.
It was very jarring. I was just like, why are these things in here?
You could have a different animation team or whatever making this when everyone else is rigging 3D models.
Yep. Yeah, the other thing, too, though, is that the binary decisions, and this is just a problem with these games in general, not just the games that these people make, but just these choose-your-own adventure games in general, is that the binary choices that you make often lead you to definitive outcomes that will completely ignore things that happened prior or relationships that were built in the game. Like, one thing that I found when I got at the end is I was thinking back, and I'm like, wait a minute, there were all these scenes that I played through and watched that brought these two characters closer together, or where they formed an alliance, or they found a common ground. And I got to the end of the game, and I realized that because I had made decisions that had all these consequences, that a lot of those things just disappeared. There was never any resolution for them. There was nothing. It's like, hey, we had this moment, and we're a squad now, and we like each other now, but none of it ever comes to fruition. And I guess maybe that's a little bit of an incentive to go back and play it again.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's some flag that determines that one way or the other, and
yeah,
because it's easy to make those big choice web games sort of unravel in that way.
Yeah,
unless you know the path that they want you to take to get that sort of payoff.
Yeah, yep. And here's a note too: if you get the deluxe edition of this game, the first time you play it through, there's a feature called the Death Rewind, where it actually lets you, if somebody dies, you can rewind it. Now, I didn't use it because I played the regular version of the game, but I did some reading about
Forza.
it. What?
Somebody's been playing Forza.
Yeah. But exactly, the rewind feature. But so I didn't experience it because my version, you have to finish the game before that feature unlocks. The deluxe version, you have it the first time you play through. don't mess with it, because there are some glitches in this game. There's one decision or one death that if you decide to rewind, it takes you back to the beginning of the game.
Ooh.
And that decision is at like hour 9.
Wow.
Yes.
That's not good.
No, it's not good.
I feel like that's not working as intended.
No, it's not. No, the developers have already addressed it, and they're like, we're going to patch it, but we haven't got it done yet. So
Sorry, I'm trying to remove it. I'm sorry.
Yep. But essentially, you have 3 opportunities to intervene when a character dies and jump back to make different choices to help them survive. And that's choice...
I mean, one of the most frustrating things in Until Dawn is when you're trying to do like a perfect run through and screwing up, and then like somebody dies, you're like, oh, we got to start over again. Like that's a good addition. But yeah, it feels more appropriate for that to be unlocked after you finish it the first time.
Yep.
I would definitely not want to play that with that. That's too much power.
Yeah.
Especially if you can erase your game. By accident.
You have to go all the way back to the beginning of the first scene where they're standing in front of the cabin with the car. Yeah.
So
brutal.
Annoying.
Yep, so don't do it. Don't mess around with it. Just play through it.
Don't do it.
As I said, the game is around 10 hours long, and as I've also said, there's plenty of incentive to replay it. The game does track like your main decision paths that actually alter the playthrough, so you can check and see what choice you made that caused things to branch in a particular way. Mm-hmm. So when you go and play through it the second time, you know, hey, at this point, I need to make this decision differently to make sure it plays out differently, which is a nice resource to have.
This is set today? Is it modern?
It's present day, yeah. And there's definitely some, like, you know, why do the cell phones never have reception? There's some of that to it.
Man, I don't get full reception in this room, let alone in a camp.
No, I'm
not. I'm not questioning that anymore. I've had a cell phone too long. They all have AT&T. That's the answer.
And there are extensive accessibility options, so you can choose to just watch the movie play for 10 hours. Mm-hmm. Or you can, you know, make sure that you're taking every opportunity to interact and alter the story yourself. Or you can just set it up so, like, you're just playing some of the QuickTime events. Like, they've done a really good job of giving the player a lot of latitude in how they want to play it and how much they want to interact with the game. But no matter what, you're not going to interact a ton. It is very light on gameplay and interactivity. So my point is, after playing this, I was completely enraptured with this game, all 10 hours through. And I started thinking back to all the horror movies that I've watched in the last decade. And honestly, Matt, like, maybe 2 of them were as good as this game, as far as, like, a plot with the payoff. And this is something where you can change the trajectory of the plot, who lives and who dies. And I was just blown away by this game. I had a blast playing this game. I really enjoyed it. Again, one of the most pleasant surprises I have had in 2022. The title of the game.
That's a rough close-up.
Yeah. The title. To me, he is the worst character model in the game.
Yeah, he doesn't look right. He needs next-gen neck tech.
Well, his neck is always sweating.
Yeah.
Always sweating. For whatever reason, the whole way through the game, his neck is always sweating.
He's a big Top Gun fan.
Yeah, yeah.
Sweatiest movie of 1986.
Now, this game is full price. Like, if you buy, like, I got the Xbox One version, it was $60. The Xbox Series version is $70. It is 10 hours.
There's another one. There's like a deluxe version, too.
There is, yeah, that's even more.
Yeah.
And, that's too much. It's a 10-hour game, and you can play it again.
Yeah, I think I ended up paying like $20 for Until Dawn on sale, and that felt about right.
Like, I would probably
maybe for this would be more, because Until Dawn, I certainly wouldn't praise Until Dawn's writing the way you're praising this one.
I didn't even talk about, actually, the voice acting, the writing. The voice acting in this, amazing. Amazing. There's a couple characters.
Well, the cast is real solid. Like,
there's a couple lines. Yeah, I forgot to actually read some of the people who are in this. Like, there's huge. Like, I already obviously mentioned David Arquette.
Fair, Until Dawn had Rami Malek before anybody knew who he was.
This has David Arquette. It has Lance Henriksen. It has Ted Raimi in it. And the voice acting is incredible.
Lance Henriksen will show up as long as you can pay him.
Yeah. There's a couple lines throughout 10 hours that are, like, not delivered perfectly, but otherwise, the voice acting is incredible. The writing, really good. Like, legitimately funny jokes. The stuff that they say is the stuff that real humans would say if they were put in these situations. The decision-making that isn't yours always makes sense. Like, there's none of that dumb horror crap like that Geico commercial where, like, let's hide. Well, there's a car. Let's get in the car and drive away. No! Let's hide behind the chainsaws. Like, there's nothing of that in this. Like, everything they do makes sense. And they put you in a couple positions, too, where you question yourself. So, like, there's one scene where all hell's starting to break loose, and there's a group of the counselors at a fire, and then there's others that are scattered out in the woods who are in trouble. And one of the counselors wants to take the gun that you have with him to go check on one of the people who has left the camp. And you get in a struggle over the gun. And your choice is let him have the gun or keep the gun. And it's one of those timed ones. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I want to do? Let him have the gun, keep the gun. And I thought to myself, I'm like, there's more people here at the fire. So I need to keep the gun to protect the larger group of people. And so I keep the gun, and he goes off and like tries to rescue the person without the gun. Later on, I find out that was the right choice to make. Like, they think like the decisions that you make sense. Like, they also are like, you know what? You got 6 people here at the fire. Why are you going to give the guy a gun to go save one person when you can keep the gun and keep the 6 people at the fire safe? Like, the whole game is like this. Again, like this, I'm just blown away by this game, Matt. I can't believe it. Like how much I enjoyed this game. And I am a horror guy. I love horror movies. I am a horror aficionado. I'm a little gorehead. I had a Fangoria magazine subscription when I was a kid. This is in my wheelhouse. But if you like stuff like this, this is great. This is easily their best game by a mile. Way better than Until Dawn. Miles better than the Dark Pictures anthology. This is them in their pure form. So the leap from Until Dawn to this, to me, is drastic. And so I don't know if they're going to be able to keep making improvements like this in leaps and bounds, but if you're into this kind of stuff, but only moderately, check back in with these guys in another 3 years, and who knows what they'll be doing then. But I was really impressed with this, but the problem is the price. You said $20, I would pay $40 for this. But that's max. That is the most I would pay for it. There is value in playing it again. More value than I would argue in a lot of video games to play it again. Just to see the different outcomes and the things that can happen. Like, again, I made it to hour 7-something before anyone died. But there are ways for characters to die in the first, 2 hours of the game. So there's all these branching paths, different ways you can play through it, all based on your decisions. And ultimately, the outcomes and the decisions all make sense. I can't remember a horror movie that does that. I just watched the recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. The second one that they've done now was for, Netflix or Amazon or something. That movie was so full of stupid shit. We were just like, what are you doing? Why would you do that in a million years? That makes no sense. None of that stuff happens in this. And it's 10 hours long. It's just, to me, an amazing piece of work. Really impressed with it. I can't recommend it enough. At least once the price comes down. If you find this for $40, buy it immediately. I really balk at spending $60 or $70 for it, though. I don't know what they're thinking, trying to charge that much for it. Because it's just... I just can't rationalize that many hours of entertainment for that much. And I know people will be like, well, look, I pay $15 to go see a movie, and it's an hour and a half, and if you do the math, it actually works out. If you're one of those people, then go buy it. Generally, my purchase scale, it's too short for $60,
yeah, but I think it's expected you're going to play it more than once.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking closer to 20.
Yeah.
Once you've seen everything.
And you're right, because there's no way to fast play this game either.
No.
It's not one of those games where, once you play it once, you're you can get to everything, you know what to do, and you can go everywhere before you have to think about it or whatever. This game is, you have to play it at the pace that the game lets you play it. So if you play it again, you will get pretty much that same 10 hours out of it again. But yeah, again, just a real pleasant surprise. Really glad I played it, had a lot of fun with it. And I actually paid for this game myself. And I don't regret it too much. I would have rather have paid $40 for it, but, it's my job to come here and jump on grenades for you guys. So I went out and bought the game just like anybody else and played it. And I don't feel ripped off. But I know for a lot of people, money's tight right now. And so it's hard for me to recommend it. Somebody else would go.
Yeah, it looks like they put AAA level money into it.
They did. Oh, for sure. Yep.
I can understand the price. I just don't know if that's something, you're talking about comparing that to something like God of War.
Right. Yeah. And I can't. It's buy God of War. Do not, if you're picking between this or a God of War.
But you can't buy God of War for 6 more months.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're right. And you may need something to play right now, and I really, really like this. So, and you're right, Matt. The promotion for this, terrible. Terrible. The title of the game, terrible.
I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah. I mentioned it when I left on Sunday after Xbox. And I was like, what are you playing? You tell me what you were playing. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm playing the Quarry. And you were like, what's that?
I thought, honestly, when when you mentioned it and when I first looked at it on the store, I thought it was one of those Friday the 13th Evil Dead style multiplayer games.
Yeah. Nope.
That's what I thought. I thought it was it's one of these asymmetrical thing where you play one person plays a killer and I was like, oh no, I was like, oh no, that's Superman. I realized who it was that made it and figured that was not what that was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. That's a poorly named and promoted game.
It is. Yep.
Which is doubly weird because of how much clear effort went into it and the casting. But okay.
AJ the Legend Watson asks, what do you think Supermassive or similar developers can do in these games to improve upon them?
I think these games are what they are.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, okay, there is something. Get rid of the fixed camera angles. It's really annoying. When you're just trying to explore and find clues or whatever.
Yeah, I did see you go back and forth there in the cabin.
It happens a lot. Yeah. It'll cut angles, and if you keep holding the stick in the same direction, the character will turn around and start walking the opposite direction. They can get rid of all that crap for sure. They could actually put some gunplay in these games that actually works and is worthwhile. They could make them more interactive, I guess is what I'm getting at, and better to interact with. While still keeping the choice and the consequences and the great writing and the great voice acting.
Let me open every drawer.
Right.
Let me be Shenmue.
I don't want that either. That's going too far in the other direction.
Pick up every orange.
Yeah. But this, I mean, I'll be honest with you, AJ, this is about as good as this stuff gets. If you're into this kind of stuff, go buy this game, because I do say it is overpriced, but if this is one of your favorite genres, it won't feel overpriced to you because it's the best example of the genre. Is this also online, offline co-op from Danboy90? No, there's no co-op in this.
Yeah, there is.
How?
You assign...
there's couch co-op. Yeah,
there's going to be an online mode
where you assist people in making the decisions.
Yeah, and you assign people different characters.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah,
I did see that on the store page.
Yeah. Any other questions you guys
got? Because I looked more into it because I'm just online won't be available till July 8th. What does that mean? That's one of the reasons I initially thought it was like a Evil Dead Friday 13th kind of thing, because there was online play, and I was oh no, that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, they recognize one of the ways people played Until Dawn is like a party game. People all get together and watch. You play it like a movie, because it's engaging enough for people to just sort of watch it like a movie and yell about the choices.
Yep. I had a lot of fun with it. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not the funny part is story for me in games usually is way down the totem pole of my priorities. But in a game where it's all about story, then I absolutely care about it. And they did a great job handling it in the Quarry. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that Matt has been playing, and then I went and played. However, I have a feeling that you probably played more because I had to keep trudging forward with the Quarry.
I'm at the end of the demo now.
Where is the end of this demo?
You go through 4 chapters.
Okay, because I played through 2.5, and I was like...
It's not a short demo.
I'm is this the whole game? No, and what we're talking about is Fire Emblem Warriors. What is it, 3 Hopes?
3 Hopes.
3 Hopes, which is a Dynasty Warriors game set in the Fire Emblem 3 Houses universe. And it really is set in the Fire Emblem 3 Houses universe.
Yeah, it's an alternate universe version of it.
But it's not that alternate because it really wraps you up into the same stuff that was happening.
But it's extremely alternate because it's a completely different outcome.
What do you mean by outcome?
Well, you remember 3 Houses is basically about them going to school together, right?
Yeah.
The school part is over in about 3 chapters.
Oh, maybe I didn't get to that point because you
become
become a part of the school.
Right, but that lasts literally 20 minutes.
Okay. So I didn't quite get there.
No, so the demo covers the first 4 chapters, which is the prologue, and I think the first 1 or 2 chapters of the actual game beginning. So there's 3 different stories because you have to choose which house to side with. And from what I can tell, each house is a completely different story.
Really?
Because I sided with Edelgard in the Black Eagle, because that's who I picked in the 3 houses.
I did not.
Because I like those characters the best. And so I went with them, and the whole story has shifted. So they do the whole thing where she's got this whole plan to do this thing. So you enact the plan, and she basically takes over and becomes emperor of the empire. And then it jumps 2 years ahead, and the academy's gone, and she's basically waging war against it. You're invading the middle of that map to destroy the church.
Huh.
And no one knows why. You're all with her because okay, yeah, because you're doing a good job as empress, so we'll do this. And the church people at the headmasters from the 3 Houses game are why is she doing this? And everybody, the other 3, all 3 house leaders have become the leaders of their respective nations. So this is chapter 4, and so the main meat of the game is not 3 Houses. It's what if 3 Houses, because what this is actually the main character of 3 Houses, what you play, Byleth. Mm-hmm. The story is actually, what if Byleth never ended up at that school?
Nah.
Because Byleth is the antagonist in this game.
Yeah, you choose whether you want it to be male or female as well. Yeah,
and your character sort of joins instead as this mercenary, and you pick a house in very convoluted form. Like there's like, oh, you should just join the school, pick a house, whatever.
Right.
And all of a sudden you just get caught up in these continental issues. So it jumps ahead way faster than Three Houses did. Three Houses, you spent a lot of time in the school before the conflicts really started between the various nations. This is, you are literally jumping, at least in the Black Eagle thing, you're jumping ahead 2 years, and everybody's got their fancy armor on. Nobody, it's. And so when you hit chapter 4, you kind of finally hit the meat of what I think the game is, which is you see the whole map of the continent, and they show the outline of all these areas you need to conquer to get, and like there's usually a string of areas, and then it shows you kind of the ultimate goal of the chapter, and so you have to kind of conquer all the areas, and each one's a Dynasty Warriors level essentially. And then there's like different areas, like little points of interest in each area. After you conquer the area, you can click on them and you get bonuses from them, and you can they're like little kind of like quick side quest or text choice things. So like the meat of the game seems to be like a pretty wargaming map thing where you have to like take over the thing and get through it that way. It's actually pretty compelling. It's got some Dynasty Warriors empires to it.
Dude, this game's insane. It is insane. It has like so many elements from Fire Emblem in it, like strategy stuff where you like start like on a map and you can give orders to your party members to go to different parts of the map and start like attacking different targets.
Yeah, so you could do that in the first Fire Emblem Warriors, but the trick on this one is you kind of have to do it in this one.
Yeah.
Because a lot of stuff happens simultaneously around the battlefield, and you are trying to get high rankings in like S rankings, and one of those rankings is time. And if you want to do these missions a lot of times in a timely manner, you have to send different characters out to the different parts of the battlefield to fight these battles and take over these sections, because it does have the same thing that they had in the first Fire Emblem Warriors, where each character has classes, and each class is better or worse against certain other classes, and it's showing on the map where the officers you're better against and worse against are, so you can send your teammates out to fight the guys they're best against.
Yeah, it tells you on the map, like you
kind of have
give you
that
the
all
percentage chance of
and you
your
can
guy.
kind of have that all happen at once, because early on I was trying to do everything myself, like you normally do in a Dynasty Warriors game.
Yeah,
and it was just I was running over here, and it was the S rank time for the map was like 13 minutes, and it took me like 40. It was
you
like,
have
okay.
to send them if you want to hit those numbers.
So you have to like really you have to strategize a little more, which is cool. Like. And there's all this, there's all the relationship building and the conversations as you
the
up
branching conversations where you make decisions in your conversations.
And you haven't gotten to this part, but there's a part where like there's crafting on things, and then like there's cooking, just like in Three Houses. There's training and all these classes to unlock.
You can choose permadeath or turn it off.
You can do permadeath, just like that. That's like the first one. I chose casual.
Yeah, me too. I'm not about these people dying.
Thing.
Yeah.
And then you can there's the conversation thing, where you up your level enough with another character, and then you have a conversation, and your alliance, your friendship rank goes up. Like that's all in there. It's
crazy.
It really is a Fire Emblem game, but instead of turn-based battles, you are playing an action game.
You go and fight it. That's it. It really is. It's just like Three Houses, except instead of going out and playing turn-based battles, they're real time.
You're playing an action game. Yeah, playing a real-time action game.
And dude, the fighting is insane. The depth of the combat in this is nuts. Like, you have a dodge, you have a parry.
Yeah.
You have you can't see them because our graphics are. I'll just take them away so you can see here. You can see in the bottom right hand, and of course, I level up at the wrong exact time. But in the bottom right, you can see how many attacks you have that are set up to use at all times.
Yeah.
And then you earn new attacks that you can then swap in and out.
Yeah. And you level them up by using them.
By using them, which I love games that do that. It's like, if I really like a weapon and I'm using it a lot, level that thing up. Like, every game should do that, in my opinion. But you can see the map up there. They're intricate maps, and as Matt said, you'll start a map, and they'll point out where the big enemies are on the map. And at that point, you can choose to send your team out to those different points. It will tell you what percentage chance they have of completing that objective or whatever. And in some cases, they won't even let you send people if they're just going to go and die.
Which means you got to go do it yourself.
Yeah, and usually that means that it's on you. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like once you see chapter 4, like it lets you play through a series of those battles to conquer like the final area, and then it's like, okay, now you got to wait for the full game. But you can import the save from the demo to the full game.
This demo's huge.
So it's a lot.
It's free on the eShop right now.
Yeah, it's like a 10-hour demo. Almost.
It just keeps going.
And I will say this, like after getting through that kind of that chapter 4 is where you really get the real taste of like, oh, this is what with your home base and all the stuff you can do and all the things at home base and how the leveling up when the class changing works and how the moving through the map works and what kind of scene where they're setting up how the conflict's going to function. I'm gonna put a preliminary thing out on this and say, this may be the best Musou game ever made.
I was gonna say the same thing.
This is the Dynasty Warriors. This is the Dynasty Warriors game I have always wanted them to make, and they never did.
Yes, I was blown away by this game.
This is really, really, really good.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Like the one caveat I'll say is I think if you haven't played Three Houses, you're going to be a little lost as to who all these people are. But other than that, like, this is probably the best Dynasty Warriors game of all time.
It is funny, too. Like, the game has no Nintendo branding. It's all, like, Koei Tecmo and Omega Force. Like, if you boot it up, it doesn't have a Nintendo logo or anything. It's like it's a...
No, it doesn't. That's true.
Koei Tecmo game, like, which is weird. But what is so crazy how good this is and how bad the Dynasty Warriors games have become.
Yeah.
Seriously. No Dynasty Warriors game comes close. And you're right, Matt. Like, it brings in elements of all the stuff that Koei Tecmo does.
Stuff that they haven't had in since, like, Dynasty Warriors 5 Empires in places. Like some of the grand-scale strategy stuff has just been missing from the main Musou games for years.
There's even, like, Romance of the Three Kingdoms elements in this. Yeah. It's like all of it. It's like, this is like Koei Tecmo's, like, ultimate game.
It's like they went through and picked all the best stuff they've put in individual games of like Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors over the years, and finally been like, oh yeah, let's just put all that in one.
Yeah, it's like you can start like a mission and you can choose another character to quote unquote team up with, and then you do these awesome team up attacks. Like it's incredible, and the depth of the combat is amazing. It runs great, even though there's like hundreds and hundreds of enemies on screen at a time. I never saw the frame rate buckle. Did you?
No.
And this is a demo.
Like
it's not
butter.
even done. I've been blown away by this. Like I was wondering if you felt this, and then you just said it. Like the best Dynasty Warriors game ever. I'm like, I was thinking about that driving over here. I'm like, have I played a better Dynasty Warriors game? And granted, I think I've played 2.5 hours of it or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it just keeps getting better and
wait till you get to chapter 4 where it unlocks the whole map and all this stuff. Like it's great, it's amazing.
It's like the lower third says, Musou deep. Like I was just shocked at how deep everything in this game is. And like you said, there's the relationship stuff where you build the romance or the different relationships with the other characters in your party. It still has the whole like Harry Potter pick the house stuff, like the school, all the characters that you know from Three Houses, which if you played it, it took you 60 some hours to finish it. You have relationships with these characters. Like I remember these characters and their quirks and like all that stuff. Like just blown away by this game, Matt. Another great pleasant surprise from this week.
Hugely shocking.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I like the first Fire Emblem Warriors, and
I didn't even play it.
I'm like, it's good. Like, this takes a lot from it, but it refines everything. Like, the first one definitely had it had the paper rock scissors element, you know, the different types being better than the others. It had the class progression. It had you can command characters to go different places and do things. It was not as essential. As in, like this, I feel like you have to do that. In the other one, it was just sort of a nice thing you could do to have. It had the special moves that I like, but there's just like it did not have the narrative of this. It was much more slapdash in terms of putting, you know, it was a mix of all the different Fire Emblems together, and there was sort of a weird sort of team up, kind of like the Warriors Orochi things, or sort of a best of sort of thing. This feels like the closest analog I think in the mainline Musou games is probably. Samurai Warriors Spirit of Samada.
I know what you're talking about.
It was a story. It was between 4 and 5.
I remember that
4
game,
and 5. And it was a very story driven game. I think it was a tie-in with a drama TV series in Japan about the same story. But that's the closest I can get to something that's as story driven as this is. This is a very robust story, and like again. It's Fire Emblem. If you don't want to have people standing around repeating the same thing over and over again and saying, you know, there's a lot of like
There's a lot of jibber jabber.
we have conquered most of the southern continent in the last 2 years. I'm like, yeah, why are you telling the emperor who told you to do that what they just did? Like,
there is a lot of, I will say this, there is a lot of jibber jabber.
Yeah,
and I did find myself jamming that A button to get through some of the
jump through some of this pretty quick.
Yeah.
And as a relief, once you get to some of this, the more run around in the camp stuff where like nobody's fully voiced anymore, you just sort of like move through the text. Like, that's good.
But there's a lot of voice work in this too.
Tons of it.
A lot of it is voiced. And there's just rungs and rungs of copy to read.
I think just the fact that they chose to set it in the Three Houses world and have that set of characters and have that situation and have that layout, like the focus they chose on this has worked way better than having it be a best of Fire Emblem game like the last one.
Yeah.
Like this is shocking. This is shockingly good.
Yeah, I was blown away by it. So,
and like I can't wait to get to the next action-based battle. I can't wait when the battle's over to see what happens next. I can't wait to go upgrade all my stuff at the camp, and then I can't wait to go do the next battle with my upgrades. Like it's a gameplay loop that just works in a way that the Muso games haven't for me in years.
And it also keeps you on your toes because it'll say, okay, here's a mission objective, but then it'll just start throwing stuff at you. It'll just start adding things. Like at the end of this mission, like they throw a huge creature into the map. And like, hey, now you got to fight this huge dinosaur-looking thing. Like,
and how you fight those is different from how you fight normal. It's not just like whack away at a big thing, like a big enemy. There's like, you have to take it apart piece by piece.
Yep.
And you have to pick, you can do it with a non-optimal character class, but it's going to work a lot better if you do use the optimal character classes, and that's interesting too.
Yeah.
And you got to pick who you bring to each battle, and how is your relationship with those characters, and
it matters.
And are their classes the right lineup for this? Like what are you going to run into? You got to predict what you might run into because you might end up with not enough. You take your favorite characters, they might not be the right classes to deal with what you might run into.
I just make sure that I roll with like a very
good variety.
varied crew. Yeah, just so I have somebody who can handle every enemy. It's really good. And there's a demo on the eShop right now that is like crazy long, and your save transfers over to the final game.
Yeah, you are definitely going to know whether you want to play the final game by the time you finish this demo.
I kept playing and playing. I'm like, is this
I'm ready for it right now.
I thought that I'm like, did they screw up and like they gave the whole game like to the like?
No, I think this game is really long.
It must be.
And there's like you can juggle hundreds of soldiers at once. I think my top combo was something like 8,000 hits or something. It's nuts.
It's fun. Yeah, I'm blown away by this game. I couldn't believe it. So
go download it. Go play the demo. Absolutely. Like there is probably nothing you could do better with your gaming time this week than play this demo
or play the Quarry. Either one, but But
the Quarry isn't free.
That's true. Yep. That's Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. That's 2 huge thumbs up from Matt and I can't wait to get the final code from Nintendo to keep playing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home, and while I'm rendering this show, I'm going to play more of this.
Yeah, after I finished, I was like looking around at like, maybe I should get a Dynasty Warriors game until and like no, I was looking up impressions like nah.
You looked at that 4.1 Metacritic for Dynasty Warriors 9.
No, I mean, if I was gonna get one, it would probably be Dynasty Warriors 8 Ultimate Edition because that's like $20.
Yeah.
Or I always like the Samurai Warriors games better.
Yep, I hear you. But anyway, that's 2 gigantic thumbs up for Matt and I. What a pleasant surprise too, because we did not discuss this at all. That was us on the show live, discovering that both of us loved it.
Yeah.
On the fly. Yeah.
It's really good.
It is really good. We're not pulling your leg. So, again, as Matt said, go download the demo. It's like 4 hours long. You will definitely know whether you want to spend the money on the game or not by the time you wrap it up. No questions. So, there you go. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. Next up, I hinted at this earlier that Matt and I were going to discuss some of the indie games that have caught our eye over the last week and a half. As I said, Summer Game Fest has really been like Summer Indie Fest. There was one day that Vincent and I were curating, and I think we created game pages for like 40 indie games in one day. It has just been a deluge of indie stuff. But what I wanted to do is cut through all the chaff and just have Matt and I both discuss 2 games.
Somebody's asking if Fire Emblem is available on the PC, Xbox. Fire Emblem is a Nintendo series.
Oh, yeah.
Fire
we actually
Emblem
never mentioned
Nintendo.
that. This is Switch exclusive. It will not be available
it's
on
Nintendo.
anything else.
Fire Emblem is owned by Nintendo.
Yeah, it's Switch only. We should have mentioned that. But sometimes I just assume that people know. But
Yeah.
But not everyone knows everything. So, yeah, it's Switch only. But anyway, Matt and I are going to discuss 2 indie games apiece that really caught our eye over the last week and a half. I think a lot of people think that like I hate indie games. I don't hate indie games. I just don't have a lot of interest in derivative indie games. Like another 2D platformer, or something that we saw a lot in the last week, another 2D Dark Souls game. Like, do we need more of those? Like, I'm just burnt out on the genres that just keep being recycled without anyone doing anything new. Because one thing I wanted to say before we even discuss this is kind of my perspective on indie games. And for me, I feel like there's 2 or 3 different ways that people look, or developers look at creating indie games, or studios even look at creating indie games. The one way that seemed most common to me during Summer Games Fest is we're a studio that eventually wants to make AAA games. We're small now, we don't have a big budget, but we want to eventually be a big studio that makes games with big budgets. And so we saw a lot of single A, double A indie games where they're like action games where they're trying to make a Dead Space clone or whatever, but they don't have quite the resources. Or so maybe they make a game that's 5 hours long that doesn't look quite as good or whatever. That's one way that indie studios operate. But the other way is studios that embrace the fact that they're a small studio and that they almost take it upon themselves to say, we need to find some unique way to do something, some new twist on something to give our game a chance to stand out. And that, to me, are the indie games or the indie studios that are doing what they should be doing. They have limited resources, but that doesn't mean that their imagination is limited in any way. So I tend to gravitate towards the indie games that have this unique mechanic, this unique setting, this unique way of doing something. And it's not necessarily about like, oh, the visuals in this game almost look AAA. They're like AA or single A. When I start looking at indie games that way, that's when I feel like indie games are at their worst. When they're at their best, it's when I'm looking at the concepts and the ideas behind the games instead. And so that's the way that I've kind of approached plucking out 2 games for me to focus on and highlight here on GameFace. With that in mind, Matt, what is your first game that you want to discuss?
My first indie game is based on a multi-million-dollar property owned by Nickelodeon Studios, but it's still an indie game. It's Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge.
Yeah, we've had our eye on this for quite a while now.
I'm a big fan of the old Konami beat-em-ups. This looks like a good version of that, because the one thing you will learn if you go back to those old beat-em-ups is they're terrible. There's nothing to them. They're just designed to take your like people go on about how great that old Konami X-Men game is. The X-Men game is garbage. It's absolute garbage. It's just designed to kill you as fast as possible.
So you keep putting quarters in.
Keep putting quarters in, yeah. It was just like there was nothing else like it at the time.
Yeah. And I did spend a lot of money on that game.
Yeah, so did I. But it's a bad game. When you no longer have the tension of will I have enough quarters to finish this, it's not as interesting. This game is basically you've taken that concept and turned it into a full, almost fighting game level beat 'em up. Mm-hmm. Sort of in the realm of what they did with Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
12 years ago. And it's a tribute to those old games, but it's also a massive upgrade. You also play April and Splinter. And Casey Jones was announced. Was the big announcement was that Casey Jones is in this as a playable character. Just about everything in Turtles lore you can think of is in here. They even had a new rap song.
Yep.
Following up on the grand tradition of Vanilla Ice.
Yep.
June 16th comes out in a few days.
Yeah, we'll be talking about this next week on the show.
And it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it does. And I am excited to play a good beat 'em up as well. It's like the Streets of Rage 4. I thought that was going to be it.
I like that, but it wasn't.
I liked it, but
it didn't blow the doors off or anything.
No, it didn't feel like it was innovative in any way. It's like sometimes nostalgia is good enough, but not great, and that's how I would classify Streets of Rage 4. This looks like a new level of beat 'em up, made for the modern player.
Yeah. And
Streets of Rage 4 just felt like it was trying to make Streets of Rage.
If you want couch co-op, it's got 6-player couch co-op.
That's crazy.
If you have that many controllers.
And most people do not, that's for sure. But yeah, we'll be talking about that in full for our next week's episode for 305. So look forward to that next Tuesday. Same time, same place. My first pick, in my opinion, the indie game of Summer Game Fest or E3 22, however you want to describe it, is Cocoon. Have you seen this, Matt?
Yeah. It looks cool.
This game is insane. It's from Jeppe Carlson. He was the lead gameplay designer for both Limbo and Inside. And his words describing the game is, Cocoon takes you on an adventure across worlds within worlds. master world-leaping mechanics to unravel a cosmic mystery. Cocoon is a unique take on the puzzle adventure genre where each world exists within an orb that you can carry on your back. Wrap your head around the core mechanic of leaping between worlds and combine, manipulate, and rearrange them to solve intricate puzzles. Interact with alien environments and biomechanical devices left behind by an ancient civilization. Journey through unique, diverse biomes, from industrial structures to massive organic caverns, and discover how they are connected to one another. It's bizarre, this game. Like, the one scene, I don't know if we've seen it because I was reading, where it unfolds, that unfolds, that unfolds, that unfolds, and then this little, like, beam drops out of... Mm-hmm. So, I often wonder if our galaxy, our universe, the Milky Way, reality as we know it, if we are just an atom on the fingertip of some other being. And this game kind of tries to demonstrate that idea that we are smaller than we could ever fathom. And I feel like this, to me, again, conflating what I said to start this discussion, that is what I think indie games should be doing. This is a type of things that indie games should be doing. Like, things that not just question design, but make us question our long-held beliefs. Like, this is a type of stuff that indie games can get away with that big-budget games cannot. There's no way you could make a game like this and pitch it to somebody and say, this is going to cost $150 million to make. They'd laugh you out of the room. And that is the strength of indie games. And I wish more indie game developers would strive to do stuff like this instead of saying, well, we made a Dead Space game for $3 million. This, to me, is what I think indie games should be. And if more indie games were like this, I would be behind them a lot more than I am. And so Cocoon, to me, just that shot right there. Cocoon, to me, indie game of Summer Game Fest, E3, whatever you want to call it. What do you think of it? What do you make of it?
It was cool. I envisioned being irritated by some of those puzzles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just sort of, go get in here, jump back out here, get the thing, jump back in the thing. I can put the thing on the pedestal. Now it opens this thing. Oh, I didn't have the thing. I go back out the thing. It's like,
to your point, there are times where you hear about stuff like this, and then the actual practice of doing it is really annoying.
Yeah, the novelty wears off real fast.
Yeah, and that does happen with indie games sometimes. But even that
happens with AAA games.
It does. But even that first 30 minutes where you're experiencing that spark of creativity for the first time, a lot of times that's worth the $15 to $20 that I spent to experience something new after I've been doing this for so long. So I'm really hyped on Cocoon, really excited for it. Yeah, to me, the best indie game that I saw over the last week and a half. What's your second pick, Matt?
My second pick is American Arcadia. I am a sucker for overly cheerful dystopias. And that is pretty much what's going on here. Yeah. Well, and I didn't like that game because it's a survival game, but I like the premise. I like the aesthetic of it. And I like this. This is basically The Truman Show meets The Fugitive. It seems like
yeah,
that's what
it does
it is.
seem that way. Yeah.
And it's kind of like an isometric platformer sort of thing, and you're just trying to escape from the forces of whoever's running this sort of weird Logan's Run style paradise. And I don't know, I like the aesthetic and I like the tone. I like what they're going for, and this is one of the few things that kind of stuck in my head over the rest of the noise.
This game, I think, was actually debuted in April, I believe, if I remember correctly, and then they blew it out with gameplay and stuff like that during Summer Games Fest, where it just kind of went under the radar when it was announced, and this was kind of its real coming out party here. But you're right, this game stuck with me as well. It was one of the games that I was really looking at when I was cutting it down to my two games.
I was very confused by the Flashback 2 announcement because there's already a Flashback 2 called Fade to Black.
They also don't show the game.
They also didn't show anything, yeah. And I was like, oh, I do like Flashback, but I was like, that's weird about that. What was going on there? And then this reminds me of Flashback in a more positive way, than Flashback 2 does.
Yeah.
So,
well, we haven't seen Flashback 2.
No,
It's all footage of Flashback 1 in the trailer for Flashback 2. You think they would have shown at least a little snippet of what we could expect, but yeah, they didn't. They didn't really do that. So this is another one to keep an eye on. I should also remind you right now that this is a good time to go on Sifted.net and follow these games. Go to their game page and click the little gear next to the game's title and click follow. And anytime we have any updates on that game, it will appear at the top of your Sift. And then if you get tired of it, you can go back to the game page, click the gear again, and turn it off. But I do this for games that really catch my eye that I fear aren't going to be shown a lot, like indie games. So Cocoon, I followed it. As soon as I saw the trailer, I went and followed it on Sifted. And now anytime there's any updates about that game, it will pop to the top of my Sift. Okay, and then my second game, again, following on the ideals that I laid out before we discuss this, is a game called Nitro Kid. Now, when I first saw the trailer for this, I was like, oh, this is my indie game of the show. And then as I investigated it more, it turns out that the game is a little more traditional than I thought, but it's still really cool. It's a roguelike deck builder set in the 80s, the neon 80s, where you build your own...
The 80s didn't really look like that, kids.
No,
Just saying. There was way more brown in
not
the
80s that I grew up in.
Like, I mean, everyone... this is what it's portrayed as now, but it was mostly paneling.
Yeah, wooden paneling.
The 70s died hard.
It sure did. You build your deck of cyber kung fu moves. So it's a deck builder game, but each card is a kung fu move. And then you use those cards to build combos and fight through the floors of Infinity Tower. It features 30-plus synthwave tracks, one of my favorite genres. And it's a mix of 80s kung fu movies, cyberpunk, and roguelikes.
So if you want to know what that Marvel Midnight Suns game is going to be like, this is a pretty good basis.
That's actually a good point. Yep, absolutely. It's set in a dystopian neon Miami. Megacorp Infinity has secretly captured kids with special abilities to turn their powers into military products. The goal is to save as many kids as you can and put Infinity out of business. It's got grid-based combat. You can slide around enemies to find the best position for your attack combos. And you can also use the environment in combat. Again, just something that is never going to get a green light. Although you're right, Midnight Suns is not that too dissimilar to this. But generally, this is a type of game that's never going to get a big budget. And it's something that only can be created by indie developers. And it's something that I've never really seen before. It's a unique idea, unique concept. I also like indie games that do this kind of cross-sectional visual.
Mm-hmm. Mega Man Battle Network is not too far off this.
That's true.
That was kind of it's been a while since they made those.
Legendary franchise, though. One that people always beg to come back, and it never does. But yeah, that is my other one. And again, that is called Nitro Kid. If you want to follow it yourself on Sifted and make sure you get updates anytime we publish something or curate something from the game. But there you go. Those are our 4 big indie games. Now, before we move on, I do want to go to our chat because we have someone who's a good friend of ours, and he goes by the name Game Manual. In our chat, he is an indie game aficionado, and I want to give him a second to tell us what he thinks the best indie game was at Summer Games Fest or E3, whatever the hell you want to call it. I think I saw him in here earlier.
He was.
Was he? Maybe he already said what it is. Oh, here he is, Game Manual. There are more indie games like this. Okay. What was your indie game of the show? And his real name is Rob Manuel. He worked with us at G4 for years. And he's an awesome guy. And he knows indie games out the yin-yang. So, what do you got? Did he leave? Maybe he left.
I don't know. He may not be
paying attention. Maybe he's multitasking.
I think so.
I put him on the spot and he didn't hear it.
It is a work day.
You're right. It is a work day. People have stuff to do. Oh, here he is. Routine. Okay. That was also on my hot list. Yeah, that game looks pretty hot. That was probably would have been my 4th pick out of all the games that I saw. But that is also a really good one. Another one to keep an eye on. Demon says Pucky Squire and Metal Hellsinger. Metal Hellsinger, I don't know.
Yeah, I like the idea, but like
the idea isn't very unique. Honestly,
the idea is not unique, but the main thing I think the point of like kind of do the thing to the beat game is sort of like it's an interesting limitation, but I don't think it's an interesting limitation on a first-person shooter. No. I think that would just be irritating.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Rise of the Necrodancer is sort of like the example of that, I guess. I don't know. I just don't. That doesn't look. That did not look fun to me. Yeah. To watch that played, I feel like I would like it in a different something. Yeah. Not sure. I did like the guys who were making like the live action thing of the guys making it. They seem to be very much.
They're passionate.
They definitely believe in what they're doing, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. I love passion, period. Anytime someone's passionate about something, I can pick up on it right away. Those are the type of people I like to surround myself with because they're the people who are going places. And Vincent says you can try Metal Hellsinger now. There's a demo on PC and console if you want to check it out. I definitely recommend, though, Routine. If you're into indie games, also follow that on Sifted. Again, go to his game page, click the gear, choose follow. It'll show up at the top of your Sift from there on out. So thanks, Robert Manuel, for hooking us up. I know you're like the indie guru. It's always good to get your input on what you think the hot new indie stuff is. So, all right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something for not very long because we talked about it last week, and I worried that what I had played may be all that there was to play. And as it turns out, I was right. And that game is Mario Strikers Battle League. It is the new arcade-style soccer game for Switch. It just came out on Friday. Again, I previewed it last week on the show, and now that I've played the final version that Nintendo sent me, that demo had basically everything. Everything.
I was shocked that that's the whole roster.
That's it. In the final game, there's 10. There's 10 characters. Matt, there's 5 pitches in the game. I thought, the 5 fields that you could choose. I figured that was like a third. No, that's all of them.
Wow.
The demo had everything in it. I was like, wait a minute. So what modes? There are modes in the final version, but the main single player mode is just like the cup races in Mario Kart. You pick your 4 players, and then you just play in a ladder against CPU teams. That's it. That's all the single player mode there is. And then there's playing online, multiplayer against other players, and then there's this other mode called Strikers Club, which is like ranked. Basically, it's kind of like what they have in Nintendo Switch Sports, where it's this whole mode. It's all about rising up the rankings against other players. That's called Strikers Club in Mario Strikers, and that's it. That's all there is in the game. The game is $60.
Just continuing the tradition of the Nintendo sports games on the Switch being really under baked.
Matt, this is the worst of them all.
Wow,
by a mile.
Worse than tennis.
Worse than tennis. Way worse than tennis. At least there were fun, extra arcadey modes in the tennis game. The golf game actually had a single player mode where you went around this overworld and talked to characters, and there was a plot line. This is the worst of all Nintendo Switch sports games as far as content is concerned. Now, I will say this. Last week when I talked about it...
It seems weird because it feels like this would probably have the biggest, widest appeal.
I know. Just think about FIFA. All the modes that are in FIFA and all the ways that they find to squeeze entertainment value out of the sport of soccer. There are so many ways that you can do it. They can make an ultimate team, but they need more than 10 characters.
Yeah.
So... last week, a lot of my fears when I talked about this game ended up becoming true. Now, one thing I did say about the game last week was that I was having problems following the play and following the ball. And I said that I was going to spend a lot more time playing it to see if that continued to be the case. And I will say that I got a lot better at this game as I played it more. And I did eventually get to a place where I could follow the ball a lot more easily. Still, there were times where I get lost. There would be a bunch of quick passes, and the ball would go flying off somewhere, and someone would hit me with a shell at the same time, and I'm I have no idea what's going on for that split second. But it did get to a point where I could follow the play and essentially play the game with some semblance of skill. Now, going online and playing against other people online, that'll get you in shape real quick, man, because you can tell there's a lot of people who had played that demo a lot, and now they're playing the final version, and they are tough to beat. So a lot of it was just getting my butt kicked, and then that motivating me to learn the ins and outs of the games and get better at the game. The actual soccer in this game is pretty good. One of my other major complaints is that you never control the goalie. And the goalie AI in this is pretty dumb. I eventually figured out that as long as you're doing one-timers pretty easily, it's pretty easy to score in this game. Now, when you play against human characters, it's a little tougher because they're tackling a lot more. They're using the power-ups a lot more. But playing through the brackets in the single-player mode in this, I made it to the third cup and just quit. I was this is annoying. And the crappy part is that you need that to unlock all the extra parts that you use to snap onto the characters. So, and again, just a reminder from when I talked about it last week, gear is a part of this game, unlocking new cosmetics for your characters, but they never make your character OP. So if you attach a new helmet that gives new strength, a +2 to strength for Mario, it will take 2 away from some other characteristic. So you're not building like these unstoppable soccer monsters that can just go into a match and destroy people. Every time you add a piece of gear, it takes something away from somewhere else. So it gives you flexibility in how you build your team, but you're not building an OP team. But yeah, other than that, everything else I said last week about the game, nothing else has really changed about it. It's $60. This game is $60, Matt. And in good conscience, I could never recommend that anybody buys this game for $60. I can't believe they're charging $60 and they send it out with those modes. I guess they're just assuming people are going to get latched into the multiplayer. And I mean, truth be told, a good multiplayer game, it is hard to ascertain its value because if you really get into it, it's worth $500 the amount of time that you're going to get out of it. Because if you get hooked on this game, you can play it for hundreds of hours. And then $60 seems like a bargain. But that's just not generally how we evaluate sports games. They are held to the same, like this, to me, I hold this game to the same standard as I would hold FIFA if I was evaluating FIFA. And if FIFA only had like a bare bones single player mode and multiplayer, it would get hammered. And it wouldn't sell. Let's be honest. If it didn't have Ultimate Team, how well would FIFA sell with that Ultimate Team? Not very well. So it is very stylized and it is kind of fun and funny. Like some of the over the top kicks and the over the top moves are clever and the animation's amazing. The game looks really good. But eventually you see all the over-the-top kicks, and you want to just like turn them off and not see them anymore. It wears out eventually. But yeah, $60 is way too much for this game, unless you're just like, you love this franchise from the GameCube and Wii eras, and you want to be able to play it online against people now. Probably worth $60 then, but otherwise I would just stay away. And as we always say with Nintendo games, we can't really tell you to wait for a price drop, because that doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
But really disappointed in this game, more so than any other Mario Sports game for Switch. It is the worst of the bunch by a significant factor. So, there you go. That's Mario Strikers Battle League. Stay far, far away. And now for our final topic of episode 304, we're going to wrap up the other E3 Summer Game Fest press conference that's happened since we talked to you guys on Sunday, and that is the Capcom Showcase. However, I think Capcom's big problem is that it was so sharing with everybody else, with Geoff and with Xbox, that ultimately there wasn't a whole lot to show in its own showcase.
I didn't know there was even anything new in this except for Exoprimal.
Yeah, well, we'll get to Exoprimal. But yeah, there was some new stuff. First of all, they showed the first gameplay of Resident Evil 4 Remake. And it's very short. It's like 49 seconds of gameplay footage. But they do finally show us what the game looks like in-game. And Matt, it looks way better, and it looks way spookier. But it's you can see, here's the opening of the game. It's nighttime. It's dark. Like, one thing I liked about Resident Evil 4 is a lot of the game took place in the daytime. That was a huge shift for a Resident Evil game. It's always dark and grimy. Resident Evil 4, a lot of it took part in the daylight. And I thought that gave the game a different angle. Now the opening scene is taking place at nighttime. It's in the dark. It's definitely more creepy. It definitely looks way better. But I do feel like it takes a little bit away from the core experience. Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, a little bit. And that looks more like it's in the day a little bit. But that was sort of one of the things about Resident Evil 4 is and I think that's one of the it's supposed to be one of the shocking moments is that that it does happen. That thing in the village at the beginning does happen in the day.
Yeah,
it's no one's hiding anything here.
Nope.
It's just happening
right out in the open. Yeah.
So so that was sort of an advantage. I don't know. This feels like also there was a mundanity to the opening where it's you're just going through the woods, an Eastern, European woods, and
there's moving and shooting. By the way, they made a point to put that in here.
Yeah,
they're we're gonna show them that there's moving and shooting, and right here they put this little clip to show you.
You wind long enough, and you get what you want.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily peg that as the opening of Resident Evil 4.
Yeah,
if you told me that.
Yeah, feels tonally completely different, right?
Yeah,
still looks great, and I'm still gonna play it. I'm still excited for it, but a little disappointed to see that. It'll be interesting to see how they handle.
I'm ready for this to be a very different take on the material.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yep. So that was what they showed at Resident Evil 4 because they had already showed the debut trailer for it elsewhere, and they just left themselves with that first little snippet of gameplay. We should be getting a lot more here soon because it comes out in early 2023. Next up, Resident Evil Village updates. There is a new version of Resident Evil Village being released called... Oh, I lost my notes. It's called like the Golden Edition, I believe. Let me see if I can find my notes here real quickly. Because I had written all... Here we go. It includes several elements. It has what's called the New Winters expansion, and it includes 3 parts. There's a third-person mode for the main story, so you can play through the main game again from the third-person perspective. There's a new story content called Shadows of Rose, which is a chapter where you play as Rose as an adult. Now, you may not remember, but Rose is the little baby.
Right.
And I don't want to spoil too much about the end of Village for people who haven't finished it, but obviously by the end of the
Apparently
game...
she lives.
She lives, and she's also not a baby anymore at the end of the game. So, and I didn't really spoil anything by saying that, but it features what was the baby in the game as the main playable character. They did not say exactly how long that was going to be. And then there is new Mercenaries content with Chris, Heisenberg, and Lady Dimitrescu as playable characters. Playing Lady Dimitrescu as in Mercenaries sounds crazy. Capcom even made a point to talk about how tall she is and how that changes things. I mean, you can see right there. That's that shot. Look how she's like looking down.
Yeah, she's like 9 feet tall.
Look at the perspective of it. You're looking down on all the enemies like they're like they're just ants.
Makes you a bigger target, though.
It does, yeah. I think that's pretty cool, though. And this new version launches on October 28th. And then the real kicker is, Matt, remember that horrible-looking multiplayer mode that was supposed to launch with Village called Reverse?
No.
You don't remember that?
Not really.
It was like, it didn't look anything like Village. It was like this cartoony-looking Resident Evil that had like all characters from like all the games in the series.
I guess so.
I mean, I don't blame you for like wanting to shut it out because it looked and was terrible. It's coming out as well on October 28th with this new edition. So
thanks, Capcom.
Capcom will not let Resident Evil Village die. It is just going to keep on chugging. And I'm guessing most people wouldn't complain about that because it was a pretty good game. And they spent a lot of time on the next Monster Hunter expansion.
The Rise expansion or a World expansion?
No, it's called something else. It's called Sunbreak. Yeah. And that comes out on June 30th.
Yeah, so that's Rise. That's the Monster
Hunter Rise.
Expansion.
Yeah, this is available for Switch and PC. And then the DLC is called Sunbreak. And that comes out on the 30th at the end of the month. And just very quickly, it has new monsters, a new jungle area. The catch is that you need to have defeated the final boss in the base game to be able to access it, though.
Oof.
Yeah, and I did not get to the end of that game because that's no joke. That's a lot of dedication.
Didn't even play it.
Yes, I think it might cut a lot of people out, and myself included. Unfortunately, there is a demo available for it that's very similar to the demo for Rise that came out. It's a nice little chunk of play, so you can check it out before you decide to pull the trigger.
I think I'm done with Monster Hunter unless they do more of the stories games.
Yeah,
I like that one.
Yeah, that was good. The turn-based RPG, I thought it was really good. I liked it more than Rise, honestly, and I know that's sacrilege to a lot of people who like Monster Hunter, but that's just my personal opinion. And then finally, Resident Evil 7, 2, and 3 are getting next-gen patches. And also, if you own those already, you get the upgrade for free. So, PS5 and
that's
Xbox
nice.
Series versions coming for all 3 of those games. And if you own the base game, you get the free upgrade, which is cool. Dragon's Dogma 10-year anniversary. They focused a lot on Dragon's Dogma in this, which I thought was a little weird. The whole Dragon's Dogma thing, to me, is weird. Like, there's a Netflix show and, like, all this stuff that happens around it, but no games.
Yeah.
Why is that?
And they did an online game that never came here.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're dealing with, like, a 12-year-old RPG that no one, they put it out like over and over. You can get it still on modern platform, and it's great. It's a great game.
It is, yeah.
But like, it's weird that they keep acknowledging it and just not making another one. Like,
I mean, I keep thinking that. So the 10th anniversary actually is coming up in like a week. I think maybe they might announce the sequel.
People keep saying maybe.
So we'll see.
Like at a certain point, you got to either do it or shut up.
You got to crap or get off the pot, as they say. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with Dragon's Dogma. I do remember, though, Miguel Lopez reviewed it for Game Trailers, and I remember he had played it for a couple days, and he called me. He's like, man, this is really good. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, it's way better than I thought. He's like, I want to talk with you about this tomorrow because I'm leaning towards like giving this a real high score, and like I almost kind of want you to talk me down, but yeah. And as it turns out, a lot of people felt the same way that Miguel did.
Yeah, there's a lot because it does have a lot of elements of just like jank and weird, like kind of that weird presentation, and there's like a strange, weird localization to it where they're speaking like some kind of broken form of Middle English, but it's not even real. Yeah. It's like and the pawns like constantly babble nonsense the whole time. But there's constant points where you're like, but this is really fun. Like the combat's so good, and the world is so interesting, and the monster and the fights against the big monsters are great, and like you pull all these things. You become like super power. Like mages in this are maybe the most satisfying mages in the history of video games. Like you're just calling down meteor showers and tornadoes, and it's just like it's incredible. Like you feel like a god.
You do.
This. And like there's some Shadow of the Colossus elements. Like the other classes can climb up things and stab them in the head. It's like and then on top of that, it's all this like weird, like meme-y, like terror. It's just like wolves hunting packs originally. Like I have lines from that game stuck in my head 10 years later that never leave. The pawn system is great. You can go in and pull out all your friends' pawns and like get bonuses and send them stuff by using their pawn. Like, it's really good.
Yeah,
it's shockingly good.
Yeah.
Like, and I understand that reviewers' feelings were just like because about halfway through the game you're like, this is great.
But it shouldn't be.
Is it great? Like you're just like, am I really liking this as much as I think I'm liking it?
There are obvious issues with it.
Yeah.
But the good stuff overpowers the bad.
And there's elements of it that I hate in most games. Like the fact that you can miss quests if you advance so far enough in the main quest. Like a bunch of side quests will lock themselves out without any warning, and like you can accidentally advance the main quest and lock out. So that can just happen if you go to the wrong area of a city or whatever. And like that should infuriate me, but instead I was like, oh, let's look it up and do it right this time. It's just like why do I have so much patience for this game? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
it's it's great.
Yep. And then finally,
I hope they do another one. I'd like to see another one.
I think they will.
With
I think it's coming. I don't know if it'll in a week or so. I don't know, but I think they'll do another one. And then finally, the game that Matt mentioned, Exoprimal, which is basically just a backslap to the face of people who want a new Dino Crisis game. It is this
to the point that they've clarified that it has nothing to do with Dino Crisis.
It is this weird like horde shooter, like tower defense shooter, where hordes of dinosaurs come at you and you have to kill them. Like, why does this exist and a new Dino Crisis does not exist, Matt?
I don't know.
It's so weird. The game is also very weird. I think there's a open beta or something coming up for this as well. You'll be able to try it yourself. But this is like a full-fledged, full-price game. This is not going to be like a free-to-play, like you pay for cosmetics type thing. It is going to be a full $60 or $70 game when it comes out. It's team-based.
It's like somebody made like a Overwatch meets Earth Defense Force plus dinosaurs thing. It's very weird.
Yep,
like it is Overwatch. Like that's the shield from the Night Guy in Overwatch, and they're escorting a big floating platform. That's Overwatch. Yeah, but there's dinosaurs.
Vincent says because live service, and he's right. That's what this is all about. It's a live service game that you're also going to have to pay full price for out of the gate, which that always rubs me the wrong way.
And there's the sniper woman from Overwatch.
Yeah. The game story mode is called Dino Survival.
There's Reaper. There's all these equivalents.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Analogs. Where 2 squads of 5 race to complete objectives based on directives. It's coming in 2023 for PC, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, and Xbox One. And as I said, there is going to be an early access period coming up for it in the near future. So I don't know what Capcom's thinking with this game.
They're thinking maybe this will get people to subscribe. I don't know.
I'm thinking it won't, but
it's so weird. It's like, okay, so just hordes of rampage. Like
it's like World War Z with dinos, basically.
Yeah, like I don't think Raptors really did that.
Well, I didn't think Raptors came out of like portals into other dimensions.
I guess they're supposed to be like weird alien monster hybrid thing. Okay.
And to my point earlier about
just remake Dino Crisis, you weirdos. Like, what are you doing?
And to my point earlier about how whacked out ideas never get the green light for big budgets.
Yeah, I might want to eat your words at this time. Like, apparently, if you're the right person at Capcom, you can get anything done.
Apparently. So anyway, there you go. That is the Capcom showcase for E3 2022, Summer Game Fest, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Fire Native, you're thinking of Dragon's Crown.
Yeah. Capcom played nice with everybody else, and I think that lowered the impact of its own presentation. But as you said, a lot of people didn't even know what was going on. So probably Capcom played its cards right. It got a ton of coverage from Street Fighter 6, from being a bigger part of Summer Games Fest. So I think it probably did the right thing there. And then it left it with not a lot, but at least it still did something. A lot of other publishers didn't. So there you go. That's GameFace.
You gotta pick your battles.
You do. That's game, and I think they chose well. That's GameFace 304. But before we go, we got Name That Game, people. And this time, there is no way anyone is going to guess it on the first image.
Yeah, you say that now. I mean, there's a game, in the big Wordle trend now, and now there's all these different clones. And the game one is called, Guess the Game. And it does exactly this. It throws up a zoomed-in screenshot, and you get like 6 chances. And it gives hints. Like the second one will tell you what second image tells you what. I thought the third tells you what platforms it's on, and they'll tell you what its the second image tells you the Metacritic score. Mm-hmm. The third image tells you the platforms, and the fourth image tells you the year. And so you can kind of narrow it down. But a couple days ago, it was a close up of a road and a tree, and I knew that was Diablo. Like just. Boom. Yeah. I'm like, oh, it's Diablo. The first one was it was 4 polygons intersecting. It was green and 3 brown. I'm like, that's Super Mario 64. Like, you just know these things. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's like you can smell it. It's like it's like the only thing that could possibly be is an intersection of grass and brown dirt in Super Mario 64. I don't know why I know that.
Yeah. Hey, Gohan Rage, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. Appreciate it.
Although today's was very hard.
Oh, yeah? You didn't get it?
I did, but it took me four tries.
Okay. Well, you guys are going to take at least 4 tries to get Name That Game today. I promise you.
I'm not saying I'm going to get it, but they are.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. For those of you who have not played before, or you're just joining our stream for the first time, I show you a series of screenshots, and you just have to guess the game that the screenshots are from. As soon as you figure it out, put it in chat. You're playing against this guy, Matt Kyle. He's pretty good, but you haven't won in forever.
That's been a long time.
And what we've discovered is that people just start guessing, they just type game after game after game name, hoping they get it right, and that does sometimes work. People created different ways to avoid that, like leaving it up for 5 seconds. I don't think that's going to change anything, honestly. I think I just need to be better with how I manage the screenshots, and we'll see if I did it this week again. I have learned to get over the disappointment of you guys getting it on the first screenshot.
Has he, though?
Exactly. Okay, are you guys ready? Are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
All right, here is the first screenshot for Name That Game.
Death Stranding.
Not Death Stranding. Not Body Harvest. Wow, people aren't even guessing. Half-Life 2, no. Death Stranding, no. Last of Us 2, no. Everyone's guessing Death Stranding.
I mean, it's a dark beach, so...
Oh my god, somebody got it.
Dark Souls 2?
No.
Blue Dragon?
No.
Ghost?
No.
Skyrim?
No.
Hellblade?
Yep.
Oh, the first Hellblade.
Well, Hellbald, but...
Hellbald.
he wrote Hellbald. How?
Oh, yeah, I see that. Yeah, okay.
How, though?
I guess, yeah.
No.
I wouldn't have come up with that independently.
Nobody else did. He's the only one that got it. And even you, when you were looking through the list, that was the last one you thought it was.
Yeah, well, I was just going up.
Okay, who got that again? Somebody. Arigato's son. Wait, I think you won already, didn't you? Guys, don't keep playing if you've won. Let other people win. And I also want to know how you got it from this screenshot. If you can just type in a sentence or whatever, what tipped you off. Because nobody else guessed that game.
I screenshotted that game so hard on Steam. Beautiful beaches, he says. So you picked his favorite part of that game, apparently.
That's not a beach, though. That's the thing.
What is it?
This screenshot is not of a beach. It's of this desolate, death wasteland. It's not a beach.
That bottom part looked like water to me.
It's not. That's just dirt. Anyway, we'll go through the rest.
Supermaster Gamer says it's because of the color.
Okay. Does he ever explain it? Oh, I screenshotted that game so hard on Steam. Beautiful beaches. What the F?
That's what he said.
Hey,
I said that.
Well, here's the second one.
Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten that.
Here's the third one.
I would have known that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You didn't know that was Hellblade?
Yeah. I would recommend the way they do the plants on the rock. That's unique to I recognize that.
Well, what you should have recognized is that there's bodies on poles back there. That's the element that I put in there for people to get it.
I can't see that clearly.
In the top right, those two human-shaped things, those are bodies on poles.
Well, one of them's covered by a wire, so from the camera. So.
Yeah. Here's the fourth.
Yeah, that's her arm. Sure.
Her shoulder, yeah. And then this was the one that would have definitely given it away. Mm-hmm. The fifth one. You guys are just too good. I don't understand what I have to do. But if you have one in this, do not play again. Let other people win. Not even sure if he actually has one. I just thought that he did. Arigato, have you won before? Yeah, I don't know. I keep doing my best. I mean, I think it really I'm just have to blow up a pixel.
Yeah.
I can't believe anybody got that.
Like I continually say, if you know, you know. I'm also playing Hurdle, which is songs. Mm-hmm. And you basically start with 1 second, and if you don't get it right, you get another second up till 16 seconds.
Yep.
And yeah, most of them I know in that 1 second. Like you get one note, but I know. Like there was a few days ago, it was Pretty Woman, Roy Orbison. All you got was one drum beat. But I knew that drum beat.
I'd probably be pretty good at that. I think.
But sometimes it's just like no. It's either I know it on the first one or I don't know it at all.
It's like that old game show. Name that tune. I can name it in one note. I can name it in two notes.
But then there's some that it's just like I didn't get Mariah Carey Fantasy, even though I know that song because I don't think I've ever heard the beginning of that song before. Because the beginning of the song on the album is like a slower sort of ethereal chorus thing, and they always cut that out for radio play. So I've never heard the beginning of that song before.
And look, if you actually have one before and you played and you won again. It's my fault. I should say before we play, hey, if you've won this, don't play. So I forgot to mention that. That's on me. But I do say it every week. That if you've won before, don't play. Did he say if he had actually won before? Yeah, he has won before. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and we already sent you a game as well. So, all right, well, we'll just save the game we're going to give away today for somebody next week. Okay. We're going to do a very short Q&A because we're already over time. Mm-hmm. Before that, here's a word from our sponsor. A once-in-a-lifetime property is now available in northwest Montana, featuring 92 acres of gorgeous wilderness, approximately 1 mile along the Blue Ribbon, trout-rated Kootenai River, and an eye-popping view of the Cabernet Mountain Wilderness area. This is truly an outdoorsman's paradise. You can use the restored and remodeled barn with living quarters as a year-round home, vacation cabin, fishing retreat, horse ranch, or cattle ranch. Contact Doug DeShazer today for additional pictures, information, and an opportunity to view this very special piece of Montana. And with interest rates starting to rise, now is the time to pull the trigger on a home or property. Even if you're not able to relocate to Montana, worry not, sifters. Doug DeShazer has facilitated home and land sales in California, Texas, Oregon, Washington, and many other states. He can find you the perfect real estate agent for the job, no matter where you live in the U.S. Feel free to contact Doug with any questions regarding real estate at deshazermt@gmail.com or give him a call at 406-291-1643. That's 406-291-1643. Thanks again to DeShazer Ryan Realty for sponsoring GameFace. All right, we actually only have time for one question. I'm sorry, people, but we are way over time. So we only have time for one, unfortunately. Now it's going to be hard for me to pick which one, because I love you all. It's like picking my favorite child. This is a good one. It's a long one. From Norix Nessie 94. Shane, you were on the fence about canceling your Game Pass subscription. After seeing Microsoft's event and seeing many of the games that are coming throughout the next 12 months, do you still feel the same way? Although I was not blown away by the conference, there was still some great games I saw coming to the service that made me want to keep the service. No. I would actually say that I'm more likely to cancel it. I did not see a lot of stuff coming to Game Pass that got me all that excited. It was almost all indie stuff. Like, the Riot stuff I thought was a good announcement, but... You know, I had predicted before we watched it that we would see a lot of big third-party stuff that maybe Microsoft had signed to come to Game Pass to make up for the fact that it had no first-party offerings for Game Pass, and we did not see that. So, no, I'm more likely to cancel my Game Pass subscription now after what I saw during that presentation. What about you, Matt? You have a take on that?
As long as Game Pass gives me one game worth playing a month, there's no reason for me to cancel it because it's about what that would be worth.
Yeah.
It's about, it's like $15 a month?
It is, but I haven't played anything on it for a while.
I think I played at least one thing a month on it every month. Like, that's how I'm going to get Ninja Turtles.
Oh, but see, for me, it's like, it's not just about one thing that I played, because it's like one thing for me, it's one thing that I would have paid for that I did not then pay for. Like, you're right. Like, there are sometimes I'll find a game on Game Pass and I'm like, I really wasn't interested in that, but it's free and it'll take 90 seconds to download. I'll check it out. Like, sure, there's always going to be stuff like that on Game Pass.
That's all I need.
Yeah, see, for me, it's like, is there a game that I would have paid money out of my pocket for
I would
that
probably
I
pay
don't
money
have
for,
to...
I mean, I would probably pay money for Ninja Turtles if I didn't
Well, I would
have
too.
access to Game Pass.
That game's an exception, though.
Yeah.
But
generally, I would say there's at least something I might have thought about impulse buying that I didn't have to because it was on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And that's good enough for me.
Okay. I understand that perspective totally. But, I mean, I think the bigger question he's asking is, how impressed were you with what Game Pass is going to have over the next 6 months or 7 months or whatever the rest of the year?
I'm a lot more impressed with what's going to be in the next 12 months rather than the next 6 months,
right.
I'd say.
Yeah. But if you decide to bail for the next 6 months, you're going to save yourself $80, $100.
And who knows, by the time it's time to resubscribe for Starfield or whatever, you might have a better deal ready to go.
Money's tight for a lot of people right now. It's tough times with inflation, gas prices, and everything. So people are starting to think a little harder about how they spend their money. And I think a lot of people will be...
Yeah, for 1 month of Game Pass, you could almost get a gallon of gas in LA.
Almost a whole gallon. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for GameFace episode 304. A long episode today. I saw somebody, when we started the show, they're like, oh, there's going to be nothing to talk about. This show's going to be short or whatever. No, there's plenty to talk about. We have some big games for next week's show as well. Matt and I will both be jumping on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You guys should too, if you're a Game Pass subscriber. And yeah, overall, this week was kind of cool. Yeah. Like, it was nice to not feel dead right now. Because normally by now, like, we wouldn't even do this show. We would wait until Friday, because we're exhausted at this point. We wait till Friday to do our best of E3 awards and wrap everything up. Instead, we're here 2 days later doing GameFace. So it's nice to not be physically and mentally destroyed in the second week of June for once. Because usually every year that's the way it is. So it's kind of nice to do it a little bit differently for once. And it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out for 2023. But hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of what we did with Summer Games Fest and E3. I hope you enjoyed the time on Sifted on the site. Hopefully it saved you some time from using Twitter or whatever other website you use for your gaming information. That's why Sifted is there. If you're listening to this show on podcast services or you're watching it on YouTube for free, hook us up if you can. Head to patreon.com/sifted. Everything we do is supported 100% by our Patreon. If there's no money there, we can't do this. If you can't afford it, and I totally get it, we were just talking about how money's tight for a lot of people. If you are a Amazon Prime member, you can give us a free $2.50 a month every month, and you do have to re-up it every month, which is a pain in the butt. But to do that, if you haven't done it before, head down below in the description. Step-by-step instructions. It's very easy. If you have done it before, it's literally 2 clicks to renew it for this month. We'd really, really appreciate it. So, awesome show, awesome E3, awesome Summer Games Fest. We'll see you next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.